Why is it cropped like that? Wow. That's good enough. Okay, I think this should be good enough. Yeah, first of all, alright, I'm just gonna start the show off. Fucking, okay, Joe Rogan fans, I predicted this episode. Now I'm off by the runtime. Joe Rogan fans on Twitter are pissed at me, dude. I will watch and judge for myself. It's 3 hours long. Why don't Kamala do it again? Ask the transgender. I promise you not any safe questions. Have a nice day, faggot. Oh. I mean, these people really think I'm some leftist. Isn't that hilarious or what? I mean, that is so funny, dude. Alright. Let's react to this. Fuck it.
Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night. All day.
All day.
All right. We're rolling. Good to see you, sir. Here we go. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, I wanted to play this, but we decided we shouldn't play it because it could get copyright strike, and we don't want to get the episode. We don't want anybody to have any sort of way to get it down.
Sure. It's a Joe
But
Rogan
it was
episode.
the episode of
I've been copyright strike for Joe Rogan episodes in the past, so I have to be careful.
View when you were on The View, and I think it was 2015 or 2006, like when you were running for president.
Right.
And you got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss. Joy Behar gives you a big hug. Barbara Walters gives you a big hug. They all loved you. They were all talking about how you're you might be conservative in your financial positions, but you're very liberal socially. They were talking about you in such a favorable light. The audience was cheering. And then you actually started winning in the polls, and then the machine started working towards you.
Yeah.
But there's probably no one in history that I've ever seen that's been attacked the way you've been attacked, and the way they've done it so coordinated and systematically. When you see those same people in the past, very favorable to you, like Oprah, when you were on Oprah's show,
very.
She was encouraging you to be
Last week,
president.
I did one of her last shows. I think maybe Thursday or Friday. That was a big deal, being on Oprah's show, the last one. And I was like one of the last shows in that final week. And I said, boy, we've come a long way since that.
What was it like?
Well, the concept, it was really like two different lives. You know, I had a very wonderful life, but I wanted to do this. The Apprentice was still going very strong. We had 12 seasons, and we had actually 14 seasons, 12 years. They had a couple of them.
Well, they canceled The Apprentice when you were running for president, correct?
No, they had Arnold Schwarzenegger do it. I was involved in that, and I had enough of it, and we did great. It was doing great, but they wanted me to stay. They all came to see me. They said, we're going to give you a contract. They wanted to extend my contract. Mark Burnett is a great guy. Then they wanted to extend the contract. Mark said, you're crazy. Don't run. No. Nobody gives up prime time, they said. You know, it's one of those little things, which is probably true.
Nobody gives up prime time, though, for being president?
For running against 20 some odd people, you know. It turned out to be 18 professional people, you know, mostly politicians. They said, who would do this? I mean, it's a long shot. Actually, the heads of NBC came over, the Paul Telegny, all the top people came over to see me.
Joe Rogan. So this was recorded way after my tweet where I made fun of this, saying it's going to be an hour and a half long and that it's just going to be very boring. I mean, we haven't even gotten through it yet, but I said hour and 30 minutes long max, boring, nothing challenging or interesting to discuss, very safe questions. Joe getting Trump to talk about weed and UFOs, Elon glazing. So, we'll see, but yeah, and that's also a little bit of trolling. I went to Trump Tower 4 days ago or something like that. I went to Trump Tower, and people think I'm some Trump hater because I troll some Joe Rogan fans. Joe Rogan fans are low IQ. They don't understand sarcasm. That's why they like his comedy, because it's for fucking actual retards. So, yeah, I'm a Trump fan. So, the Israel stuff, I can't get behind him. But besides that, I am a Trump fan.
Me try and talk me out of it because they wanted to have me extend. The Apprentice was doing well. So it was 14 seasons. It was 12 years. We had 2 seasons where we had a double, which rarely happens. It was just a hot show. And I said, I want to do this. What happened is previously, like 3 years, 4 years before that, they did a poll. They had Mitt Romney, and somehow they put me in a poll. And I blew everybody away. I blew him away, which isn't that hard, frankly. But I blew everybody away, and I said, that's interesting.
Dude, nobody remembers Mitt Romney. When Mitt Romney was running, nobody remembered Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney might be the most boring candidate to ever exist. Let's be honest. Does anybody remember Mitt Romney? Nobody.
Because I never really gave it that much real thought. I thought about it, but never real thought. But I saw these polls were very good. And so I was thinking about doing it then, but I had a contract with The Apprentice. Plus, I was building 2 big buildings at the time, and I wanted to make sure they got finished up properly.
Yeah, I saw the buildings in person. They were beautiful.
It's one of those things. The kids were just sort of getting involved. They're very capable kids, but they were getting involved early on. So I did that. I got them done. I had some very good successes. And I came on, and then I thought about it for the next one after the Romney disaster. And I ran and I won against Hillary. And it was quite an experience. But it was a different life because you're right, The View. I was on The View many, many times. And they loved me.
Just the way people would talk. I mean, even if people had criticisms about you, people that didn't like you, there was always feuds and stuff like that. But the reality was the thing turned on you when they found out that you were going to be president. It was very coordinated. And some people are catching on to that now. There's a lot of people that were longtime Democrats like Elon and Bill Ackman and all these different, very intelligent people.
And they support me now. Bill Ackman supports me. He's been very supportive, too.
This is what I wanted to ask you. What was it like when you actually got in? Because nobody really can prepare you for that. When you're running for president, you don't really know what it's going to be like when you actually get into office. What did you think it was going to be like?
In office or when I decided to run?
So when you got in.
When I was in. So when I was in and won and was in the White House, essentially. Yes. Well, first of all, it was very surreal.
I would imagine.
It's very interesting. When I got shot, it wasn't surreal. That should have been surreal. When I was laying on the ground, I knew exactly what was going on. I knew exactly where I was hit. They were saying you were hit all over the place because there was so much blood from the ear. You would know that better than anyone. When they get the ear torn up.
Ears bleed a lot,
they bleed. Anyway, so, and I was thinking the other day, when that happened.
Dude, this is trippy. This seems like AI. This does not seem real.
I really knew where I was. I knew exactly what happened. I said I wasn't hit anywhere else. With the presidency, it was a very surreal experience, okay?
Like, what's day one like? You win, you get inaugurated, holy shit, I'm the president.
Yeah, that's what happened. So I'm driving down Pennsylvania Avenue. I just built a building on Pennsylvania, the hotel, the old post office it was. We called it Trump National Hotel. And we sold it to the Waldorf Astoria. And it was a wonderful thing. But I'm driving down, I'm passing the hotel. You've never seen so many motorcycles, police, military. It was a major thing. I got off. Really the first time I used Air Force One, landed, and we're coming down, and it was very beautiful.
I'm just checking if the audio is working, because I know there's some issues with the mic. Testing. Good. It's working.
and it was incredible. And we're going down Pennsylvania Avenue in the opposite direction. You know, normally you're used to going one way, and all of a sudden you're going the other way. The street was loaded up, and I wanted to go out, and I wanted to wave to everybody, but that wasn't smart. You know, the kid's a little bit dangerous, right? I mean, when you watch like Kennedy and some others, right? But I really felt, I don't know, the love was so crazy. And so I did get out of the car for a brief, you know, just for a very short walk. I thought it was very important to do. And Melania got out with her beautiful dress on that became sort of a staple. It was, people loved it. And Barron, and we're walking down the street. But where it really got amazing, we get to the White House, and now it's a little bit before dark, beautiful. And we went up to the president's quarters. They call them the presidential quarters. And I'm standing in this beautiful hallway. You know, it's funny. Nobody ever talks about the White House as being beautiful inside. You know, you think it's going to be, everything's going to be all metal doors and stuff. It's not. It's so beautiful. I made my money largely on luxury. The hallway is like 25 feet wide. The ceiling.
Saws. I have no interest in seeing the White House. I'm gonna be honest.
Heights are, you know, it's so beautiful. But I was standing there, and I said to the guys, I want to see the Lincoln bedroom. I had never seen the Lincoln bedroom. I'd heard about the Lincoln bedroom. And I was standing with my wife. I said, do you believe it? This is the Lincoln bedroom. I mean, it was like, it was amazing. Because it's, look, if you love the country, but here you're, the Lincoln bedroom. And the bed, you know, he was very tall. He was 6'6", which then would be like, like Barron.
Right.
Would be like Barron Trump. He's 6'9", but 6'6". He was very tall.
Dude, is he that tall? 6'9", 69. Ha, nice. Wow.
That he wore.
There it is.
He wore that. Yeah, there it is. It's a long bed, elongated bed, and because people were shorter than you see. Some of the chairs are very, very low to the ground, actually, but he had the long bed. And they had, you had the Gettysburg Address right on that, right under that. You can't see it here, but right there, the original version of the Gettysburg Address. And this is the original. And I'm looking, and I just looked around. I said, do you believe this? Because I was never a politician. First of all, even if you were a politician, but I was never a politician. I sort of just started, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm standing in the White House. And it was very, very surreal. That room was so beautiful to me, much more beautiful than it actually is. You know, to me, when I looked at the bed, and the bed you could see was a little bit longer, had to be a little bit longer. He lost his son, and they suffered, the two of them suffered from melancholia. They didn't call it depression. They called it melancholia, and they suffered from it. He was a very depressed guy, and she was a very depressed woman, more so than him. And on top of that, they lost their son, whose name was Ted. And it was
Ted Kaczynski.
Just seeing it in the little pictures, a little tiny picture. I mean, you can't see the details there. Little tiny, everything the way it was. A little tiny picture of Ted, who he lost, and it was devastating. And he was, he was. Look, he was in a war. He was having a hard time because he couldn't beat Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee won like 13 battles in a row, and he was getting like a phobia, like a fighter. You know, a lot about the fight stuff. But like, I went to a UFC fight, and it was a champion who was 14-1 about a year ago. You would know the names. 14-1, and the only guy he lost to was this one guy, but the guy that he was fighting was like.
Dude, just say the names. Is Trump scared that these UFC fighters are gonna kick their ass if he says their names? Just say the names.
Just an average fighter, lost numerous times, but he beat this one guy. So I said, okay.
I really don't know who you're talking about.
I will figure it out.
Okay.
I don't know
but
either.
About a year ago. But the point is that he lost. He wasn't nearly the fighter as the one, but the one who was not nearly the fighter had beaten. He's the only guy that beat the champ like 5 years before. And I said, I'll take the guy that won the other fight. And that's what happened. He beat him a second time.
Sometimes
Lincoln,
psychological advantages.
Yeah, what is this crazy thing? Lincoln had a I don't know, I've never read this. I heard it from people in the White House who really understand what was going on with the whole life of the White House. But Lincoln had the yips about, in a way, as the golfers would say. He had a phobia about Robert E. Lee. He said, I can't beat Robert, because Robert E. Lee won many battles in a row. He was just beating the hell out of him. You know, they tried to get Robert E. Lee to be on the North, but he said, no, I have to be with my state. You know, the state was his whole thing, and he went to the South. And he was, I've had generals tell me, we have some great generals, the real generals, not the ones you see on television, the ones that beat ISIS with me. We defeated ISIS in record time. It was supposed to take years, and we did it in a matter of weeks. These are great generals. These are tough guys. These are not woke guys. But their favorite general in terms of genius was Robert E. Lee.
In terms of strategy, you mean?
Strategically. He took a war that should have been over in a few days, and it was, you know, years of hell, a vicious war. And so here I am standing there, and again, I had never really done this before. You know, I ran a number of months before I won. I probably, I guess if you figured max it out, it would be a year, something like that. So I had never run for office. And I did well. I mean, I went into debates. We had 18 people, including me, and then slowly but surely they started to disappear. We had debates, good debates.
Everyone's aware of all this stuff. But what I want to get to is, like, what was the experience once you got inside?
It
like,
was just
what did you think it was going to be like in terms of, like, your ability to govern?
Yeah.
Like, this is your first experience governing anything. You've never been a governor. You've never been a mayor.
Yeah,
right.
private stuff.
Business.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden you're inside the White House.
The biggest thing was just that first moment of being in this hallowed, it was really a hallowed place to me. It was
surreal.
It was beyond. To me, that was the experience. It was a surreal experience. And then with time, that wears off. With time, it becomes, you know, your place where you stay. And
right.
I was doing a lot of, I had two things that I really focused on: governing the country and survival. Because from the moment I won, before I got to office, all of a sudden, they came down. I mean, nobody has ever been treated that way. And you see that. I mean, you see where in the Washington Post very early on they said, well, now the impeachment stuff starts. And it did. I mean, it literally started from the beginning. So I had survival and run the nation. I had a combination. Most people don't have the survival. They get in.
What did you expect, though, in terms of, like, once you got inside, you had to appoint all these people?
Yeah.
Like, how many appointments did you have to make?
Well, you have actually 10,000 appointments. Now, they're different. You know, you have big ones, and then they appoint 100 people and 200 people. But the president really is involved with approximately 10,000 appointments. So you'll appoint a Secretary of State, and he or she will appoint a lot of people. So it's a lot. But in terms of major ones, you probably have like 100, but they're big ones. Treasury, state, military.
And how did you know who to appoint?
Well, I didn't. I had no experience. You have to understand.
So
I was there 17 times in Washington, and I never stayed over. According to the press, which I think is probably right, over the years, I was only there 17 times. I never stayed over. So now I'm sitting there, I'm saying, this place is gorgeous, but, you know, I don't know anybody. It's like you know, you go to certain areas, and other areas, they may be great. Washington was great. Washington's not so great right now. We got to fix it. We got to make it better. A very dangerous place, very badly maintained.
This is what's interesting about Trump, and that's what makes him, I don't know if relatable is the right word, but that's what admirable is, that he is not a career politician. He, like he's saying in this interview, he wants to be president, and he's going through all the motions, he's doing all the things, but, you know, it's a very weird, like he said, very weird experience. And this is actually the first time I ever heard him talk about this. I've never really heard him talk about this before in interviews about, you know, what it's like being president for the first time, what's like doing blah, blah, blah for the first time. And he's saying right here, it's like, yeah, it's kind of a interesting experience, very psychedelic type experience, almost.
Place. We're going to make it great. We're going to make it better. We're going to bring it back. But I wasn't a Washington guy. I was a New York guy. I was a New York builder, and I built buildings in New York, and I knew that whole world, but I didn't know the Washington world too well. And all of a sudden, you're supposed to be appointing top people. So,
what did you think it was going to be like? Versus, like, did you have any ideas of what it was going to be like, and what was different?
Well, I was always involved in politics, but usually from the standpoint of a donor. I was a donor. You know, I was a big donor. I gave money to politicians. I enjoyed politics.
Mostly Democrats, right?
Both, really, pretty much both. I actually pictures of Ronald Reagan and me when I was very young.
You were a Democrat until, like, what year?
I was a Democrat I could get you the exact, but the early 90s, I switched over eventually. Actually,
that's what people don't realize too, that he was a Democrat. You know, and that's the thing too. Like, yes, Donald Trump is a conservative, but I've never viewed Donald Trump as like this like hardcore conservative neocon type. You know, he's never really been that type of guy, really. And yeah, his Democrat past proves it.
They had a reform party. I was thinking about doing that for a little while, but then fortunately I didn't, because it's very hard. You know, it's a two-party system. And anytime you hear third party, I know you like RFK Jr., and so do I. He's a fantastic guy.
I do, but I thought that being an independent was nonsense.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work, because even if you do great, you're not going to get Congress.
Third party, dude. Third party isn't a thing in America. Yes, you can run for third party, but you're not going to get in as a third party at all. Even if there was no Democrats, no Republicans running, you're still not going to be third. You're as a third party, whether it's the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, Jill Stein. Has anybody voted for Jill Stein? Jill Frankenstein? That dumb B word. Even if you ran as third party, you had an advantage over everybody else, you had the most votes, you're still not going to get in. They're just going to... Let's say nobody was running for Democrat or Republican, they would just like throw in like people that are like fictitious that will win over you. They'll throw in what are those, the AI, like the chat, what are those, the streamers, like the chat bots, like what are the anime girls that talk to the live chats, like the Twitch chats? They'll throw those in under the Democrat Republican Party before anybody that's a real person runs under the third party.
In other words, you need now to say, okay, now I'll get half of Congress that's never going to vote for you. So even if you got there, which is very hard, and I know how you feel about Bobby, and I feel the same way, and he's now with us, but it doesn't, it's pure and simple.
This is what I was confused too. On the ballot, RFK's on the ballot, but I thought he was under the Trump administration. Is he still running? But he's under the Trump administration? I was always confused about that. I was talking to a friend about this recently, because they actually voted for RFK Jr., and they were confused. They told me too. They're like, yeah, I thought he was under the Trump administration. Why is he on the ballot? They voted for him because they wanted RFK Jr., but they're at the same time, they're like, well, isn't he under the Trump administration? I mean, what? I voted for him because that's who I want the most, but it's kind of weird. I don't know.
Party system.
Right.
And somebody, I won't mention his name, but somebody spent $250 million trying to get the nomination as a Reform Party candidate or whatever, and they got just nowhere. You get eaten. You just get eaten. The system eats you alive.
Right.
So it was really somebody that not only was new to Washington, but was new to politics. So in the office of the presidency, over the years, all those presidents, you've had 92% were politicians and 8% were generals. General Eisenhower, General Washington, right? General George Washington, you had generals. So it's 8%, no admirals, 8% generals and 92% politicians. You know, they're politicians and they go on. So they never had a business guy, or they never had a guy that wasn't elected to an office. They were all like Ronald Reagan he was a movie actor, and then but he became the governor of California for, I think, 2 terms, and then he ran. So you never had a thing like this. But in terms of me, and sometimes I'd use it as an excuse, and I don't like having excuses actually, but I'd use it as an excuse. I had to rely on people that I respected or liked, but that I didn't know that well, because I didn't know them that well. Some of those people I campaigned against, because, when you have 18 people, we had mostly politicians running in the election, running in the primaries, and they got knocked out one by one, but I got to like some of them. Some of them I didn't like at all, and I don't like them now. And I'd rely on them, and I'd rely on other people. So all of a sudden, people would come in, I'd like to recommend so-and-so to be Secretary of State, and I'd have 3-4 people recommend. One thing I can tell you, everybody wants the position.
Of course.
No, but sometimes I'll hear, a lot of people don't want to work with Trump because Trump is tough to work with, et cetera. Let me tell you, everybody wants to be any one of these positions. They die for it.
Of course.
Now, they don't want to be known. I mean, there's a particular guy in New York, primarily, very big, very successful, very strong, very political, although he's not a politician. He'd give anything to be Secretary of State, but if they ask him, no, I don't think I would do it. But in the meantime, begging for it, okay, begging. I believe you. Everybody
yeah.
wants it.
But by the way,
no matter what you do, But it's very dangerous to pick somebody outside of a politician because a politician has
How
been
is this
basically
not
vetted
AI? This all seems AI. I can't believe this is actually real.
for years.
Right.
You pick a business guy, and they've never been vetted at all, and they're the head of a big company or something, but they've never been vetted. You know nothing about his personal life. You know nothing about
Right.
where he's been. When you put him in, it's a little bit dangerous because all of a sudden they get checked up, and you hear things that you say, "Wow, this is not going to work out too well." So it's very dangerous. Picking people that are outside of politics is somewhat dangerous.
So you're kind of stuck in a position where you have to pick established people. And then the problem with established people is established people are already indoctrinated into the system.
And they're stiffs in many cases. They're stiffs. They're survivors. I find that
What do you mean by stiffs? When you say stiffs?
a stiff, they don't have nothing. They have nothing. Or
That's what's admirable at Trump. He has a real estate background. He has a completely different background. These career politicians, like, why should we care about what they have to say? They get, like, Trump, he has an actual background, like working and owning a business and blah, 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 blah. He knows the American experience. He's lived the American dream. What has these career politicians done, Being a politician? That's not even a real job, really. A politician? Get the fuck out of here.
they're smart and survive. One little thing. So there was a congressman years before I ran, and I was very close to him. And I needed a license on something, and he was very important in getting the license. But it was a little bit controversial, the license, this particular thing that was being licensed. But I was close to this guy and helped him and everything else. And I went to him, I said, "I'd like to have your help." And he said, "Let me take a look at it." I said, "Ooh, that's not too good, but I really hope you can help." And anyway, he tapped me along for a long period of time and ultimately didn't do it. And I said, "You are a stiff. You could have done this thing so easy, etc." But it was controversial. He was in Congress for many years, like 28 years. And, there's a reason when somebody's there for 28 years, you got to be sort of smart.
Right.
You have
A
all the
survivor.
scandals. And I realized he was a survivor.
And so they never do anything controversial. They never take any chances or speak their opinion. It's outside of the... Yeah.
And yet I don't disrespect him for it.
So-
I actually respected the guy more in a certain way.
Because he did survive.
You know what? He's been there like for 28 years, and he made it through. A lot of people don't make it through.
It's a good way for non-exceptional people to survive.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly is.
So you're in there. You have 10,000 appointments you have to make. So you're getting advice from people. And at one point in time, did you have a moment in time where you realized, these are bad?
I have to take a piss. I'm going to make food as well. Well, no, there's viewers now, so I'll stay.
Choices. Like some of these people
I'll
shouldn't have had in
stay.
there.
Oh, yeah. I think so. The one question that you'll ask me, that I think you'll ask me, that people seem to ask, and I always come up with the same answer. The one mistake, because I had a lot of success, great economy, great everything. Everything was great. We the military, we rebuilt it, biggest tax cuts in history, all this stuff. We had a great presidency. 3 Supreme Court justices. Most people get none. You pick them young. This way they're there for 50 years, right? So,
Right.
Even if a president is there for 8 years, oftentimes they never have a chance. I had 3. It was sort of the luck of the draw. But I will say that
I think that to be president, you should not be 35 years old or older. I think they should have Zoomers as presidents. 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds. We need a president that doesn't wear suits, wears designer clothing, hypebeast clothing, vapes. That's what we need. We need a president that wears off-white. That's the president we need.
it always comes back to the same answer. The biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
Neocons?
yeah neocons. Or
neocons, but you shouldn't have picked J.D. Vance. Okay, he's not that bright of a person. I shouldn't say that. He's a hillbilly. He's the Scott Irish. Now, I'm somebody that's part Scott Irish. I never mentioned that background. Ever. Why would I? I mentioned my Spanish background to the ladies. Do you think I'm going to tell the ladies I'm Scott Irish, like J.D. Vance? No. Nobody respects the Scott Irish. I don't know why Trump even picked that guy.
bad people or disloyal people or
people that were just
people
bad,
that were into the
people
people
got
that
bad advice.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're reading about him a little bit today. A guy like Kelly, who was a bully, but a weak person. You know more about bullies than anybody probably around because you deal in a certain sport where the bullies are exposed very quickly.
Yeah.
But he's bad. Bolton was an idiot, but he was great for me because I'd go in with a guy like a John Bolton. You know John Bolton. A friend of mine called me up. I was picking Bolton, and he's a very smart guy. His name is Phil Ruffin. He's a very rich guy from Las Vegas. He's a great card player. He doesn't play cards, but he's a great. He's just a natural. He got poker sense, right? Good old poker sense. And Phil Ruffin is a very, very wise kind of a guy, and one of the richest people around, and has had great success and understands people. So it was in that I was picking Bolton, or I picked Bolton. He called up. He said, "Don't pick him. Why? He's a bad guy." Now, he wasn't in politics at all. He's in various businesses. He said, "He's a bad guy. It always works out bad with that guy." And I said, "Oh, man, I wish you told me this 2 weeks ago. I already hired him. He's here." And he was right. But he was good in a certain way. He's a nut job. And every time I had to deal with a country, when they saw this whack job standing behind me, they said, "Oh, man, Trump's going to go to war with us." He was with Bush when they went stupidly into the Middle East. They should have never done it. I used to say it as a civilian. So I always got more publicity than other people. And it wasn't like I was trying. In fact...
Yeah, dude, we need to get rid of the neocons. We're done with the neocons. We're done with the Daily Wire. We need to get rid of them. Like, enough with the Middle East stuff. Enough. Neocons don't care about real issues. All they care about is transgender did a commercial for Bud Light. Oh my god, it's so funny. Like, neocons are the biggest losers ever. They are literally bigger losers than Antifa or communists or any of those type of people. Neocons are the biggest losers ever out of any political spectrum. Yeah, I said it. I don't give a fuck if a conservative is listening to this. Be like, oh, well, they're conservative still. Shut the fuck up. Neocons are trash. The people that support neocons are like these like jelly roll listening fucking redneck like fucking losers, dude. These fucking dude, neocons neocons are those rednecks. You know how rednecks put like American flags all over their trucks and shit? Dude, I haven't seen rednecks lately with Israel flags on their trucks. Since when did fucking rednecks give a fuck about Israel? Or about Jewish people? Since when? Because they're neocons. Neocons are stupid. They're stupid. They're dumb. Back to the interview.
I don't know exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I can definitely tell you. You said a lot of wild shit.
Maybe. Maybe
You said a lot of wild shit, and then CNN, in all their brilliance, by highlighting your wild shit, made you much more popular.
Yeah.
And they boosted you in the polls because people were tired of someone talking in this bullshit, pre-prepared politician lingo. And even if they didn't agree with you, they at least knew whoever that guy is, that's him. That's really him. Yeah. When you see certain people talk, certain people in the public eye, you don't know who they are. You have no idea who they are. It's very difficult. You see them in conversations. They have these pre-planned answers. They say everything. It's very rehearsed. You never get to the meat of it. One of the beautiful things about you is that you freeball. Like, you get out and you do these huge events and you're just talking and you're making. We've highlighted you on the show many times when you did this Biden impression where he's walking around, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's funny. It's stand up. It's funny stuff. But it's like and you were making fun of Elon one time. You were doing an Elon impression. It's great. You have like comedic instincts.
This
like,
is my Elon impression. You guys want to see my Elon impression? That's my Elon impression. You get it? Because he's an autistic retard. That's my impression of an autistic retard, which is Elon Musk. Rat. Fucking hate Elon. Fuck this. Twitter is worse because of Elon, okay? I've gotten more tweets taken down saying words like, the F-bomb, the N-bomb, because of Elon. When I was on Twitter beforehand, when it was Jack Dorsey, I didn't get my tweets taken down by saying the N-bomb, the F-bomb, or misinformation. No, it's when Elon got in, that's when that stuff started happening. Okay? I'm tired of Elon. If you impregnate Grimes, you're a fucking retard. Why would you impregnate a fucking crackhead? Fucking piece of shit.
When you said to Hillary, you'd be in jail. Like, that's great timing. Yeah. But it's like that kind of stuff was unheard of.
Here's a challenge.
Like, no one had.
Here's a challenge for Elon Musk fans. I want you to go out right now and get some bitches. Guess what? You can't, because you guys are fucking losers.
Done that. And I think...
You know, it's funny. You need at least the attitude of a comedian when you're doing this business. This is a very dangerous business. First of all, it's a very tough business.
It's the most dangerous business.
It's the most, well, for a job?
Yes. I mean, other than going for war and being a part...
I lost all the viewers because I made fun of Elon fans. Because the people that are watching this right now are Elon fans. I don't give a fuck.
Fighter or being a cop, it's the most dangerous business.
It's the most dangerous. Being president is the most dangerous.
Especially you. I mean, you haven't even got to the election. There's been 2 assassination attempts. And they've brushed those out of the news like it was nothing.
Yeah, they'd rather not talk about them.
Imagine if there was assassination attempts on Biden, how hard people would be attacking the right. How they would be trying to get guns taken away from people. They would try to ramp up gun laws. They would try to figure out some way to blame you. If there was attacks on... If Biden got shot in the ear, we would have never heard...
People are like, Elon's so based. Then why does he have a trans kid? If he's so based... Think about that. Fucking get that out. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
End of it.
But I think he's in good shape because it's only consequential presidents. If you take a look at what's happened, look, I'm for having countries pay us billions and billions and trillions even dollars. I took in hundreds of...
I tell Elon fans to get laid, and they literally leave my chat. They stop watching the video after I say that because they know that they can't.
Billions of dollars from China. Nobody took in 10 cents, not one other president. I do things that make it, that don't necessarily make me so popular. I just do what's right. And when you do that, you're more, look at Iran. We would have never had the attack on Israel at all. Iran was broke. I told China, if you buy, you can't do business in the United States under any circumstance. We're going to go cold turkey with China. Some people think that would have been a good idea anyway. But if you buy any oil, 1 barrel of oil from them, you're not doing business. I said that to many countries. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money. But I make myself, I understand what I'm doing. You make yourself a target, and it's a very dangerous business. But if you just look at statistically, so I sort of think, I don't know if it's right, but 1/10% for a race car driver. It's pretty dangerous business, right?
Yeah.
1/10% for a bull rider. I tell you, to me, these guys that ride the bulls is worse than UFC. It's worse.
Yeah.
These guys, you see these big monster bulls, and you see it in slow motion where the foot is like, an inch away from the head if it hits him, the guy's gone. But they die. They die.
So 1/10% die. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 1/10% die.
Right.
And they certainly get hurt badly. Really, they can't walk after a certain period of time. But with a president, if you look at
the amount of assassination attempts.
And attempts, too. Yeah. And attempts. No, it's a very dangerous position. I never thought of that, by the way, when I did it. You don't tend to...
Did you just assume because people loved you on The Apprentice, they were going to love you as a president?
I think it would be so easy. It's
well,
very
it probably would have been if the media didn't attack you the way they did. If they didn't conflate you with Hitler. I mean, even today, like... Kamala was talking about you and Hitler. They're going to take what you said about Robert E. Lee. Oh, Donald Trump wishes the South won.
That's right. He loves Robert E. Lee.
They love to take things out of context and distort things.
But they don't even have to take them out. They make them up entirely. Okay,
they do that too.
But it's interesting when you mentioned I was very popular, and all those people loved me. I mean, some of these women, they're so stupid. And Joy, she would, every time she'd see me, I'd be in the theater or something, and she'd, you have to be on the show again. Come on, let's go.
She loved you.
She loved me.
That episode where
By the way,
people should watch that episode just to see what we're talking about. Like I said, we don't want to get a copyright strike, so we're not going to put it up. But if you watch the episode, it's bananas. It's like an alternative universe, and it's only
but 9
years ago.
Whoopi loved
you. Gives you a hug and a kiss.
And how about that other one, the new one on there, the one from my administration? She writes me a letter. You're the greatest president. She leaves. She worked as an assistant press secretary. I hardly knew her, but she leaves and she writes me this gorgeous letter. What's her name? She was. I don't even know. Anyway, she was in the administration. She's on now currently. Sits on the far right-hand side, whatever the hell her name is. And she writes a letter, the most beautiful letter. She's quoted in the paper. He was the greatest president, blah, blah, blah. Then all of a sudden she goes to the View. She starts hitting the hell out of me because they won't hire her unless. I've had many people go on CNN and they call and said, I don't know what to do. They want to pay me a lot, but I have to be negative on you. I said, be negative. That's okay. There are guys on like CNN. They won't hire them. Sean Duffy is a congressman, and he retired. He got a good job with CNN, but he was only positive about Trump. So they kept him, but they would never put him on. I mean, I respect what he did. He could have gone, negative. I tell people, go negative. Let my friends make the money.
Well,
it's so crooked. The press is so crooked.
It's crooked, but it's also they're diminishing themselves. They're killing all their credibility, and it's opening up the credibility to new media. It's opening up the credibility to independent media. All these.
The worst I've ever seen, though, and I've seen the worst. I mean, I've been a part of it. I've seen the worst. Kamala goes on 60 Minutes, gave an answer that a child wouldn't give. It was so bad, and 60 Minutes took the answer out. They took the whole, and they put another answer in.
They edited it deceptively,
which didn't make sense either, but it was better. They took the, well, it wasn't editing. It was fraud.
Yeah.
This was not editing.
Right.
Editing is where I'll give an answer and they'll take a couple of words and change them around, or they might even take a sentence or two off, which is very bad. But it's sort of bad. I'd give an answer, which was a very good answer. I always talk about, I like to give along the weave. I like to
you like to weave things in.
But when you do the weaves, and you have to be very smart to do weaves. When you do the weave, look at this, just in this one thing. We're talking about little pieces all over here, but it always ends up. No, it comes back home.
Yeah.
For the right people. For the wrong people, it doesn't come back home, and they end up in the wilderness, right? but they can take my answer, and you know what? They may take a little piece of it out or something, and they use the term, "Yes, we want to save time." Well, it's not. But I've never heard. I think it's the biggest scandal in broadcast history. What happened to CBS? So you have CBS 60 Minutes. That's a news program. It's not an entertainment program. It's under their news. It's the head of their news thing. She gives an answer that shows that she's essentially incompetent, and they took the answer. Could you imagine them doing that?
We can show it if you want people to see it. Can we show it? No,
sure.
We get in trouble. We'll get copyright strike. Okay.
If Elon is so base, why does he have a trans kid and impregnated a crackhead and also dated Amber Turd? If he's so fucking based, can somebody in the chat or on Twitter explain that to me right now? If he's so fucking based.
I'll indemnify you.
But it's drastic. But what was interesting was the other full version was available initially. It was like a preview.
Somebody made a big mistake.
Somebody put that preview out
there.
Some
kid put the preview
exactly.
out. And then the bosses did this or that. And then all of a sudden they said, we got a problem.
Exactly. And then
they got caught by mistake.
Well,
but don't you think that's a big, to me, and don't forget, this is election interference and fraud. And it's 60 Minutes. It's their news division. So it's
a big deal.
They give those licenses out, Joe, for free. They should pay a fortune. They're worth a fortune. They give them out for free because they're using the public airwaves. With cable, you don't have that. Cable's different. But, it's just a different deal. But with the networks, they give those licenses. They're worth billions of dollars. They give them out free, but you have to be honest and all. That was bad. I think that David Muir and that woman that was aside, I never even heard of her, but they kept interrupting me. It was like, I said, how many people am I debating here? I got this one and I got you two. But he went after me 11 different times. It's interesting. I always thought he was a nice guy, but he's just like the rest of them.
Here's the thing. And this is what Trump's talking about. This is how he won in the past. This whole idea of, nice media, nice, we have to take down the bad boy and blah 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 blah. That shit doesn't work, and it has never worked. Look at all the people throughout history. Trump, Eminem, Sex Pistols. Oh fuck, I think it went back. Oh shit, yeah, I went way back. Oh my god, dude, I don't even know where Trump, Eminem, Sex Pistols, who else? Elvis, Richard Pryor, whoever. They've always won the culture war. The edgy person, the bad boy, always wins. And the media does not like it at all.
And they're up there trying to make it tougher for guys like me that were builders because they get paid more money. In other words, I had one guy, highly recommended. I was good at getting permits. I was one of the kings of. I was always very good. But the environmental stuff.
I was 45 minutes in.
You're a Khabib person, but you're not a comic person. No, nobody's going to know who Khabib is. But
they know who
he was not bad, right? That guy.
Oh, he was phenomenal.
But that's your kind of
your
person.
weave is getting wide. We're getting wide with
my
this
weave. But isn't
I want to bring it back to tariffs.
But wait one second before we finish with tariffs. So they said, could you get him? We need Starlink. And I call Elon. He got it for him so fast, saved so many lives. And I said, how was it? They said, better than the wires. They couldn't put them in. They were all gone. So
I used it recently in Utah in the mountains.
Did you find it good?
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's the size of an iPad. You just set it down on the ground. You get high-speed internet. It's incredible.
We're spending, just to show you, $1 trillion to get cables all over the country, right? Up to upstate areas where you have like 2 farms and they're spending millions of dollars to have
talk about the $42 billion that was wasted on this internet access program. They didn't get anybody.
They haven't hooked up one person.
Does anybody else think it's scary that Elon has the most amount of money where he can do anything he wants? And I mean anything. The dude could murder people and get away with it if he wanted to. You just have to pay people off.
One person. They spent $42 billion. They could have gotten Starlinks to everybody with that kind of money.
For almost nothing.
Yeah.
For a monthly charge.
And it would have been incredible. And it's
he
high-speed
wanted
internet everywhere you want to go.
And he wanted to do that.
And he wanted to do it.
How about this? They built the charger stations, right? In the Midwest. They built 8 of them. They cost $9 billion. That's like a gas pump, right? They built 9 gas pumps, except electricity comes out. They spent $9 billion. 3 of them don't work. The whole thing. There's so much waste. I could sit here and tell you about things that there's so much waste, abuse, and fraud.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I think everybody's aware of that.
Let's get back to tariffs.
When you're talking about, one of the criticisms of your administration was with tax cuts and with tariffs, you increased the deficit. So what was the strategy behind that? And did you think it was going to increase the deficit by a substantial amount?
Okay, we were ready to rock. It was all, I had a bad system. We had a horrible tax policy. I made it great with a much lower tax rate. So I took it from almost 40% down to 21%. Now I'm bringing it from 21 down to 15, but only if you make your product in the United States, which is great. People call me, they said, what a great idea. Nobody ever heard of that before. I don't care if they make the product in Japan. Why should I give up? So it's at 21. At 21, in the first year, we took in much more revenue than we did at almost 40. Think of that. It inspired. Now, we had other things, too. We were able to get people to bring back their money. You couldn't bring back your money. If you had money in Europe, like Apple had many billions of dollars outside. They couldn't bring it. There was no way to bring it back in. The bureaucracy, the documents, the whole thing. And also the tax was too high. They wanted like half of it or something. Nobody's going to do that. So they leave their money in Japan and they spend their money there. That was part of
the Trump era is the era that now I was young during the Trump the Trump era. But that was the easiest time financially in my entire life, was the Trump era. Screw the Obama era, screw the Biden era. The Trump era was
what I did. The money came pouring back.
I make the most amount of money now, but as I've gotten older, because when Trump was president and stuff, I was a teen, like 20 years old and things like that. But that was the easiest time financially in America that I remember was the Trump era.
And Apple took in hundreds of billions of dollars. They brought it back from overseas. They brought it in.
So how does the deficit increase because of that?
So what happened is this. We were ready to rock and roll, and then we had the COVID thing, and we had to focus on that. And if we didn't give some businesses a hand, you would have had a depression like in 1929. But we were ready to start. We would have very shortly been paying off debt. We have $35 trillion in debt. And I'll never forget it. It was talking about from the standpoint of being in office. I mean,
I'm saying all this stuff while people on Twitter look right now. I was doing a little trolling. People are like saying I'm a transgender, I'm a faggot, I'm a leftist. This is what I'm saying, like, there's smart conservatives out there, but like a lot of these people online are just like, all these guys commenting on my tweet are like boomer, those guys that take the selfies like this. Those are the people.
The Oval Office, and I have John McLaughlin and Fabrizio, the two very good pollsters, probably, I don't know, I would say the two best, who knows, but very good pollsters. And we're starting to think about running for a second term. And we had the greatest economy in history. Never has there been an economy like
And you attribute that to lowering taxes and tariffs.
Two things. And also I cut regulations more than anybody else. And if I asked many of the businessmen, from the big companies, the guys running the big companies, I'd say, so if you had your choice, you've had it now for a long time, what's more important to you, the tax cuts, you paid less tax, or the regulation cuts? Every one of them said the regulation cuts meant more. Who would think that, right? Because you don't equate it to dollars, but it actually is more dollars. We had it going, and then we just had to focus on something else. But they were sitting there, these two pollsters were sitting there, and they said, sir, if George Washington came back and Abraham Lincoln was his VP, as opposed to Waltz, how bad is he, by the way? But if Abraham Lincoln was his VP, they couldn't beat you. And I'll never forget it. The following day, they said, something's happening in China, sir. Could we meet? I said, what's happening? People are dying. And it was all
Sorry, I mean food. I have to eat food. I haven't ate food in hours.
On the Wuhan lab, by the way. There are pictures with little lines, they're body bags, all around the Wuhan lab. And I always said that from the beginning, Joe. It was, they tried to say, first they said it was France, and, they blamed everybody.
Right.
But then they say it was bats from a cave 2,000 miles away. So we got hit with that.
You want to hear something that's way more based than anything you'll hear in this video? You ready? COVID. COVID is a hoax. Boom!
And despite that, we had the best economy. And when I gave it over, the stock market was higher than it was pre-COVID. I mean, nobody could even believe it. But we saved it, and we were helping businesses. They were dying. They were dying.
It's your belief that if you had a second term, given the policies in place, the way the economy was booming, that you would have been able to pay off a lot of the debt. And that was the strategy.
If we didn't have COVID, we would have been paying off debt, and we would have had. And don't forget, by growth, the word growth is actually more important in a way, because you could have the same debt, but if you double your growth, all of a sudden you're under-levered. But still, we should pay off debt. If you viewed this $35 trillion right now, it's a lot. But if you look at the asset value, if you look at it purely as an asset value, we have oil underground, we have water, we have mountains, the assets are so enormous. But regardless of that, we've got $35 trillion in debt, we should pay it off. And we would have started paying off debt and probably even given further tax reductions. I want to get it down to 15%. We're going to do more business. But when you get hit with a COVID, everything stops, and you have to keep these businesses alive. The businesses were dying. I mean, they were just dying. This country was going to die.
Are there influences outside of environmental that keep people from wanting to drill for oil and frack and do those sort of things, outside of the environmental concerns, which are legitimate, of course?
No,
but are there other influences that maybe over-accentuate or over-exaggerate these environmental effects? Are people being influenced in a way where they're trying to keep us from producing American oil?
Yeah. So the environmental is the biggest tool for stopping growth, the biggest tool. The other is regulation. And if you speak to Elon, he said the regulation now to send a rocket up to anywhere, even if you do everything, it's becoming impossible. But they use environmental in order to get people not to do anything. And sometimes I say, I look at some of I know the environmental stuff better because I had to build buildings in New York. I had to do environmental impact studies. And I would see some of these guys that I'd hire for a lot of money, environmentalists that would get you through the process. And they'd be up in Albany, that's the capital of New York, and they're up there trying to make it tougher for guys like me that were builders because they get paid more money. In other words, I had one guy, highly recommended. I was good at getting permits. I was one of the kings I was always very good. But the environmental stuff was always horrible. They could slow a project down 10 years, 15 years. I had a project in Louisiana, built big LNG plant. It was for 14 years. It was going to cost $18 billion, one of the biggest, like the Empire State Building, laying down on its side times 4. Massive on the Gulf Coast. And they said, sir, they're going to give it up. I said, they shouldn't give it up. What's the problem? They can't get their environmental. They had environmental permits that would fill this whole room up to the ceiling. And they said there was one mistake on one little line. They wanted to do it all over again. It's not going to happen. And I got them their permit instantly. And they built the plant. It's massive.
So when you're saying that, there's people that are making...
I don't understand this whole environmental permit, the regulations and all this stuff. Life is short. We should just do whatever we want to the environment. That's what I think. Life is short. Who cares? I mean, what does the average person live up to? 75 years? Who cares? Let's just do whatever we want to the environment. Who gives a fuck?
Money by making it difficult.
Yeah,
Are you talking about lawyers?
No, I'm talking about environmental consultants and lawyers.
Environmental consultants profit off of dragging out the process.
Absolutely.
And how do they
the
profit?
process worse.
How do they profit?
And I'd probably do the same thing if I were them, to be honest with you. I want to be honest with you.
How do they do that? How do they make it?
Let's say New York, they go to Albany.
Okay.
And they convince people that if you have a certain type of plant on the ground that's this big and in theory valueless, that it's a rare plant and you cannot ever even touch it. You can't go near it. You can't put a building on it. You can't do anything. Or there's a little puddle. And they call it a lake. And you have to go by the standards of a lake. I said, no, that's a puddle. Oh, you have no idea. You guys are filling little puddles. You have no idea what they do.
Anybody want to win $100 right now watching this? If you can guess which state I live in, which Albany... So I live in a city called Albany. But if you guess the state I live in correct, you win $100. So please comment. Whoever gets it right gets $100. So whichever city, whichever Albany I live... So I live in a city called Albany. If you can guess the state right, the correct state I live in, you can win $100. All right?
But they use it as a way to stop you.
They use it as a way to stop you and also as a way to generate money. I'm curious how are they generating money that way, though?
Well, they get fees.
They get fees.
Massive fees.
And
you pay these guys
people rely on them as experts because they're the people that they go to when they have to run these studies in the first place.
But some of them are just bad guys, and they're trying to make it more and more difficult.
And they have a lot of power.
I think they maybe had more. They didn't have as much with me because I would get through them, and I understood it. Look, I've done so many. They call it environmental impact study. I did so much to build a building. To build a building in New York is very tough. You got to deal with. Think of it: financing, unions, all the municipal stuff, environmental. Of all of it, to me, the toughest thing was the environmental. because they could stop you cold with the environmental impact study stuff. And you hire a so-called expert. They say, sir, he's the one guy he can get you through the morass. It's a morass. It's horrible. They use it as a weapon. They use it all over the country.
Right, but there are legitimate concerns about environmental impact, correct? Like, look about the BP oil spill. There's a lot of things that do happen that are environmentally devastating, and you want to mitigate that as much as possible.
You do. Look, I had, during our 4 years, we had the cleanest air and the cleanest water. I view it differently. I say air and water. Remember this.
Air, trees, water, animals, Atwa.
It costs much more to do things environmentally clean. China doesn't do anything.
Right.
When Kerry goes to see President Xi of China.
Yeah, the Chinese aren't good with the environment. And especially food. I mean, look at their food. Is that chicken really chicken? Or is it rat?
Which he probably doesn't even get to see him. But they look at him, oh, yes, we will do. Oh, yes, we're going to do that. No more coal. And then they approve 58.
That's why I eat like stuff like Panda. That's why I eat Panda Express over authentic Chinese food in America. I don't trust the authentic Chinese food in America. I don't trust it.
Coal plants for the next, they build a coal plant a week. Okay.
They build a lot of coal plants.
But let me just tell you, though, so here we are cleaning and scrubbing everything, and everything's got, and the air's got to be pure. But in 3.8 days, that stuff floating over China is right over the top of us.
Right.
Same thing with the oceans. They dump their garbage into the Pacific Ocean. If you take a little cork and put it there, in about a week and a half, it'll be in front of Los Angeles. We're picking up their garbage. So nobody ever talks about that. But in a way, the bigger one is even the air. It's the currents. It's an amazing thing. It's been flowing that way for 1 million years, or long before.
We share
before
air with the whole world. Yeah.
No. If
we
we're
get
cleaning,
the Sahara dust clouds over here.
Absolutely.
We get dust clouds in Austin from the Sahara Desert.
But we get to China, they call it the...
Joe. I'm going to hurt your feelings, Joe, but nobody gives a fuck about Austin, Texas. You know what cities we care about? New York, LA, Miami. That's it. Nobody gives a fuck about Austin, Texas. Joe Rogan. I know you're one of the most famous men in America right now, but nobody cares about Austin, Texas. Alright? The comedy mothership is not gonna outdo... It's not gonna be a bigger landmark than the Empire State Building or the Hollywood sign, okay? Chill out, dude. Not all of us live in Austin, Texas. Alright? It's not that exciting.
The China curse. We get the China curse. They're better, and their air is dirty. When I went there, I had a great relationship with President Xi. We got along very well. And they treated me better than anybody's ever been treated. Same thing with Saudi Arabia, a number of them. But they laid it out. And I said, this air is good. Do you know they closed every factory 1 week before I got there from within 200 miles?
That's like what Gavin Newsom did when Xi Jinping came to San Francisco.
He cleaned it up.
He got rid of all the homeless people.
Isn't that terrible in a way? To think, he cleaned it up and then it became a pigsty.
Well, the dumbest thing is he said when your friends come by, when you have visitors, you clean up your house. Like, how about just keep your fucking house clean?
Can you imagine?
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard anybody say ever as a governor as to excuse to why you finally cleaned up your homeless problem.
And the day he left...
Right back to
it. Went right back.
Yeah.
But in a way, that was a bad thing that he did because he showed what a disgrace that was. What a disgrace.
Well, this is the thing that shows you how foolish a lot of these people that are running these cities think. A lot of these people that are running these states think. It's foolish. Like you're insulting the intelligence of the people that live in that city that are impacted by these people just camping and needles and human feces. There's an app that you can buy. There's an app that you can get, rather, that will show you where the human feces has been documented in San Francisco. It's a poo app. And it's just everywhere. It's just bum crap everywhere.
But let me give you one that you may not know.
Okay.
Which I think you know everything, actually. As a student of yours. but water.
Yeah, we heard it here first, folks. Trump is a student of Joseph Rogan. Wow. So there's a poop app where you can see which city has the most poop. Why does Joe care about poop? Does he have like a scat fetish or something? Why does he have that app on? Why does he have a poop? Who the fuck? I want the chat right now. Who has a poop app on their phone?
In Los Angeles, you can't get proper amounts of water.
Right.
And it's unbelievably expensive. And you might have a house in Beverly Hills, and they're actually thinking about rationing water. Can you believe it?
I can believe
and
it.
I was in the farm court country with some of the congressmen. We're driving up the highway, and I say, how come all this land is so barren? It's farmland, and it looked terrible. It was just brown and bad. I said, but there's always that little corner that's so green and beautiful. They said, we have no water. I said, do you have a drought? No, we don't have a drought. I said, why do you have no water? Because the water isn't allowed to flow down. It's got a natural flow from Canada all the way up north, more water than they could ever use. And in order to protect a tiny little fish, the water up north gets routed into the Pacific Ocean. Millions and millions of gallons of water gets poured. You got to see this. We're driving up, and I had never seen it before. It's like Iowa. It's the most fertile land. Iowa's blessed with great land. Idaho for a potato, right?
Yeah.
But they're just, by the way, some land is good for a potato, some land is good for corn. It's a crazy.
Idaho sucks. It's a boring state. The only good thing that came out of Idaho is Napoleon Dynamite.
I love the farmers. They're great. They're the greatest. And by the way, they're getting killed right now.
They are.
They're getting killed because of the stupid
Yeah, the farmers are getting killed in South Africa right now.
administration. But so I see this, and I said, you got to be kidding. I said, you mean you have water? And I looked at it. It's like a valve in your sink, except it's massive. The thing's 5 times taller than your ceiling.
Did you know the center of California was a giant lake?
They have so much water.
You ever see what it looked like before
No,
they rerouted
I never
it?
saw that,
The
no.
center of California, like, was it 200 years ago? How long ago did they do that, Jamie? The center of California had a fucking enormous lake in the middle of
So
California.
they dumped it into the Pacific.
Who knows what they did? But whatever foolishness that they did led to the situation that they're in now.
Think of those dry forests that burned down all over. The head of Austria said,
Serious. Tulare Lake, or Tachi Lake. It's a freshwater lake in the southern San Joaquin Valley, United States. Historically, Tulare Lake was one of the largest freshwater lakes west of Mississippi. Show a photo of what it looked like back then.
that's a great system.
So that's what it looked like. Look at that image. Another one. Go to the one in the third from the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was an
wow.
enormous
What a
lake
beautiful
in the
thing.
middle of California. Imagine that.
That'd be much more valuable property.
How crazy is that?
Oh,
How
wow.
crazy is
So
that's
what
what it
did
used to
they
look
do?
like? And human beings screwed that
No,
up.
they let it go into the Pacific, and then they.
I don't know
did
what they
something.
did. What did they do? How did it go
Wow.
missing?
Yeah, they drained it.
1983. Oh my God. It went dry a handful of times. Oh, went dry a handful of times. Well, lakes do go dry, but that's a big one.
But think of
It's
it.
a big one to go
You
dry.
could have all of the water you need. All of that land would have more water. The whole thing could be like that little patch.
Yeah.
Literally, I'd say I was with Devin Nunes, a congressman, and other congressmen. We were going up. I was visiting that because they asked me to go up and visit their territory, and I did. But I kept saying, look at this land. It's beautiful, but it's so dry. And I thought they were going through like a desert, like a drought. They said, no, we have water, but it gets dry. So I looked into it.
What is the
And I
fish?
got it done. I could have water for all of that land, water for your forests. Your forests are dry as a bone.
Yeah,
Okay?
dangerous.
That water could be routed. You could have everything. Oh, not only dangerous, billions of dollars a year they spend on forest fires. And, there's a case with the environment. They're not allowed to rake their forests because you're not allowed to touch it. When a tree falls down, after 18 months it becomes very dry. It's like, like real firewood. It's bad.
Do you know that the redwood trees in California, which are either in San Francisco or near San Francisco, I don't remember. I think they're near San Francisco. Could be wrong. I've never been to San Francisco, so I don't know. Or have seen the redwoods. But that's where the root chakra of Earth is. That's why Bohemian Grove is there. So they can pervert the root chakra on Earth. That's why there's homosexuality and degeneracy in San Francisco, so they can pervert the Earth chakra. That's what I've heard.
And, a tree that's up, these are all things I learned the hard way, the easy way. But when a tree is up, it sucks water, it's wet. I went to they had a couple of horrible forest fires in California, and I said, you had a lot of trees standing. Yes, they were healthy trees, sir. I said, with this intense heat, that you could see they were charred a little bit on the bottom, but they were going to be all right because they're soaking wet because they suck up the water, right? But when they fall,
Right.
they're like, it's like lighting a match.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to clean, they call it maintain your forest. So I was
Yeah.
with the head of Austria. He said, it's a shame. I see all those forest fires in California, and all they have to do is clean their forest, meaning rake it up, get rid of the leaves, get rid of, leaves that are sitting there for 5 years. And
We'll certainly get rid of the deadfall.
and get rid of the trees that are falling.
Yeah.
That, are like so many things. This country. By the way,
Could you
I
rake
had
the
it all
whole
done.
forest, though? I don't think you could rake the whole
no,
forest.
you could-
I think you can get rid of the deadfall, but raking all
You
the
could
leaves.
certainly get rid of the dead. Okay,
Yeah, I think that's the real issue, the deadfall.
Environmentally, they don't want to do that. They said, it's got to be nature and all this stuff. But in the meantime, this is exactly
Yeah.
right. But you could have so. It was the Department of Commerce that needed the approvals, but Gavin Newsom had to sign them. I got it all done. Nobody could believe it. It was all done. I said, I got it. You got so much water. All you have to do is sign. And that guy didn't want to sign.
Did he not want to sign because that would be a political victory for you?
I think no, he didn't. No, I don't think so. He used to say he's a great president, and we got along. We did. We actually got along at that point. But I think somebody said you just can't continue to call him a great president. They do say that. But we had it all done. He didn't sign, and then we got on to other things. And I every time I go to California, I said, "You have so much water." They don't know it. I'm telling you, people living in Beverly Hills, they turn off the water. Same thing with the electric. They want to go to all electric cars, but they have brownouts every weekend. You know.
Well, right after they made the announcement that as of 2035, you're not going to be able to buy an internal combustion engine in California. Like within a month, they had some announcement asking people to not charge their Teslas. Because the grid couldn't handle it. Well, how are you
I will terminate the mandate immediately. That's a mandate.
Thank you.
That will be done, I would say, in my first day, maybe 2 days, because, you know.
Let me ask you about nuclear. One of the things that when I've talked to people that have a
You've heard it here. You've heard it here first, folks. From Ash Montoya. Electric cars are gay. They're gay. You drive a Tesla, you're gay. Those batteries in those cars are worse for the environment than fucking fossil fuel. Alright?
real understanding of nuclear power. What their position is, it's probably the cleanest, safest form of electricity that we could generate, and that the fears of nuclear power are really about a few disasters: the Fukushima, 3 Mile Island. These are old systems, and that they're much more capable now, and they're capable of making even better systems. But it's a difficult political issue because you think nuclear power, you think Chernobyl. That's what everybody does. They have this connection. They have the potential
or
disaster.
Fukushima,
Or Fukushima.
Where you're not supposed to enter the land for 3,000 years or something.
I think it's worse than that. I think that area is like going to be radioactive for probably longer than you can imagine. But the point is, they're better at it now, and that they could do it now, and you can generate power in a way that you don't have to worry about these. One of the most ridiculous things is electric cars being powered by coal-fired plants. It's a ridiculous thing.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, that is what's happening. And people want to think they're being green, but it's...
Well, if you look at the way the battery is made. But here's the other thing. We don't have... Well, we do, actually. It's being held. We have certain areas where we have great raw earth material, and we're not allowed to use it because of the environment. And we have areas in California that have incredible raw earth, and they're not allowing... And I'm going to open it up. I'm going to let them use it.
But how do you do that?
China...
How do you do that and protect the environment?
Because the environment's going to be protected. You can do it. You can make a lake out of it. Okay, we'll put back a lake. I mean, something nice about lakes. You can do things magnificently.
You just have to do it carefully and responsibly.
Absolutely, you have to do it carefully. But the problem, China has all of those areas, most of those areas. And yet, when they say go electric with the cars, China's going to be the one that gives us the cars. All of those guys in Detroit are going to be out of business. You're going to make your electric cars over there. We have a thing called gasoline, and we have more oil and gas under our feet than any other nation. I had, in Alaska, there's a find. It's called Anwar. I got it approved. Reagan couldn't get it. Nobody could get it. I got it all done. It was amazing. They were getting ready to start drilling. The equivalent, they think, of Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest finds in the world. It was all set to go. And Biden comes in. One of his first orders were, we're not going to use it. It would have been so good we could have supplied all of Asia with oil and gas.
What was the negative?
And you talk about money?
Right.
The negative was politically they didn't think it was good for them. That's all.
That's all it was. So you don't think that it's environmentally dangerous?
Taking it from way down deep in the earth, environmentally would have been fine.
So it can be done responsibly?
Absolutely. Otherwise,
let's protect the environment.
Well, I think windmills, okay, so they talk about windmills. I think windmills are really disruptive. When you talk about the environment, they kill the birds. You want to see a bird cemetery? Go under a windmill someday that hasn't been cleaned out with all the bird carcasses. It's like massive amounts of birds.
Well, they're also a massive eyesore. I went to a ranch in South Texas. We had to drive past this enormous windmill farm, and it's gross. It's dystopian. You're looking in the left and the right, and all you see is these big spinning machines that aren't even that effective at generating electricity.
Correct. Most expensive form of electricity is a windmill. And then they start to rust and rot.
And you have to
then they get
them?
abandoned by the people that built them.
Well, you have to get rid of all that material, too. When you replace those blades, now you have a problem because you have to dispose. Right, you have to dispose these enormous windmills. And
by the way, they say you can't bury them. So I even question that, but I'm not going to get into it. But they say you can't bury them. So you have the blades, and you can't bury the blades. You can bury the blades. It's not going to matter. You'll find areas you can bury. But they come up. This is what I mean. They come up with this. But the environmentalist dream is windmills, everyone. You know what happens to them? After 5 years, they start to rot. After 10 years, you have to replace them. Did you ever look at certain parts of California where they have heavy windmills and they've been abandoned? And they're all different manufacturers and all different companies. And I
haven't seen that.
It is the ugliest thing. It looks like a graveyard almost, a graveyard of windmills.
It's pollution.
It's so bad.
It's no different than leaving garbage on the ground.
How about in New Jersey, off the coast of New Jersey, they want to build. The people are going crazy not to build them. But where you have them, the whales are washing up on shore.
Right.
So in 50 years, they had one whale come ashore. Now they had like 18 come in the last year.
What is happening with the whales? I've read about this.
That famous video of the I think it's from the 70s. That news footage of the whale that exploded. They hooked dynamite up to and it blew up. I live near that beach where that happened.
Well, they say that the wind drives them crazy. It's a vibration because you have those. Those things are 50-story buildings, some of them.
Right, and they're
50.
super sensitive to vibrations.
Windmills are whack. Like when I think windmills, I think of Courage the Cowardly Dog, like dusty ass, like fuck windmills, dude.
It's rushing. The things are blowing. It's a vibration, and it makes noise. You know what it is? I want to be a whale psychiatrist. It drives the whales freaking crazy. And something happens with them. But for whatever reason, they're getting washed up on shore. And, and yet the environmentalists...
Conveniently ignored by the
environmentalists. Yeah, but the
environmental
environmentalists, they don't talk about it.
Right.
I think there's nothing uglier. I see it in Scotland. I see it all over the world. You have this beautiful valley. It's been there for, in civilization, thousands of years, but millions of years. And all of a sudden, you have these ugly windmills up.
Would your plan to be replace that with nuclear? What would you do?
Well, nuclear is better. I mean, I think there's a little danger in nuclear. But, we had some really bad nuclear. They did one in Alabama. They did one in, I think, South Carolina. They do them wrong. They build these massive things. Then the environmentalists get in. I don't want to go into a long story because it's too long for the show. This show is too valuable to talk about concrete. But they have hardened concrete. It's number 12 concrete. It's harder than steel. It's incredible. They put up a wall and an inspector comes along and goes, nope, you're a quarter of an inch. The wall might be 8 feet wide. You're a quarter of an inch too short. I'm sorry, you got to rip down the wall. Because it's got to be poured contiguously, right? You're 1/4 of an inch. I'm sorry, rip down. You can't rip it down. This stuff you can't put a hammer through it. You can't. It's incredible. Concrete technology is unbelievable. What's happened? You think of concrete.
So you think that's an example of overregulation?
Yeah,
pointless.
Well, you have an inspector that comes along and he says, take down a $25 zillion wall. These things ended up costing $25 billion, and one of them never got opened. But here's the story. So France does it. France is largely nuclear, and they build small, little, compact plants. And if they need more, they build the same thing and they hook it up, because they get too big and too complex and too expensive. And it is very clean. They say it's absolutely. My uncle, I had a great uncle who was a great genius, just like other members of my family. But he was a professor at MIT for, I think, 41 years. He was the longest. So when I was in the White House, the head of MIT, Princeton, and Harvard came down to meet me. And the MIT person said, I have a book on your uncle, Dr. John Trump. He was our longest-serving professor. He was a great genius, sir. Do you know how? And he knew everything about nuclear, from math to chemistry to nuclear. He knew it. And he said, someday it's going to be the way to go, but the problem is it's so dangerous in terms of war. He said,
right.
Donald, someday, this was a long time, Uncle John, Dr. John Trump, he said, someday you'll have a little satchel at your side.
By the way, I have an Uncle John. Everybody knows has an Uncle John. Thanks to Uncle John is fucking crazy.
Go into a building and you'll be able to blow up New York City. I said, Uncle John, that'll never happen. He's right. He's right.
Well, that was part of the problem
so
with giving nuclear power to other countries, right? Like that was the problem that happened with India and Pakistan. They got nuclear power, and then they were able to weaponize it.
The biggest problem in the world today is not global warming. It's nuclear warming. And we have idiots that are negotiating for us. We have a guy that doesn't make it past 4 o'clock. And it's not because of age. I know so many guys in their late 80s, and they're better than... I said to one guy the other day, I think you're smarter than you were 25 years ago. I've known him a long time. He's 89 years old. He's sharp. He's great. Biden gives people a bad name because that's not an age. I think they say it because I'm 3 or 4 years younger. I think that's why they say it. They say his age. It's not his age.
He's
got a problem.
2 major brain surgeries.
Yeah. He did. Those are not good operations.
And did you see what he did today? He went running towards the camera and made some apology to Native Americans. And he said that's why he's headed out west. Like he's off the reservation, so to speak, for lack of a better term.
It's interesting because during the debate, I was looking over. I'm saying,
is Joe Biden even president? Like, is Kamala our president right now? Who is even the president right now? Does anybody know? I don't know, man.
This is strange. It's just sort of like strange things were happening.
Yeah.
But
he couldn't keep it together. But do you think they knew he couldn't keep it together? Do you think that they wanted that? Is that why, like, historically, that debate was earlier than they've been in the past, right?
I think they wanted to get... Well, there's a lot of theories. A lot of people said, do the debate now and we'll get him out.
Right.
I think that maybe could be.
Well, that is what happened.
It's
logical.
I think they also said, do the debate now and get it over with.
Right.
I don't think anybody thought he was going to get out, really.
That didn't make any sense.
The debate got him out, but I think it's very unfair. Look, you have a bad debate. His numbers went down, but I think she's not doing very well right now, and I think she looks...
Well, I want to get to that, too, because it's hard to know. Like, the whole poll thing is very bizarre for most people, because most people don't answer polls. So they read the polls, and they're like,
who's getting
I never poll. If I did, I'd hang up.
I was never called by a poll.
If I did, I wouldn't answer. I'm busy.
You know how polls are done? I'm going to get myself in trouble. But so I really don't believe too much in them.
Well, 2016 taught a lot of people about the ineffective.
Well, they were very ineffective because I thought I was doing well. I'd go to a place and I'd have 30, 40,000 people. Hillary would go, they have 500 people, and they tell me I'm going to lose. I said, why am I going to lose? I had 40,000 people. She had 200 people. But, I have a theory of these pollsters. They charge you a lot of money, too. They charge you $500,000 to do some stupid poll, and they interview like 251 people. I don't think they interview them in many cases. I don't want to get myself in too much trouble.
You think it's bullshit?
No, I think they sit there, they make a deal, they get $500,000, and they say, Trump's leading 51-49. They announce it, and everybody says, oh. Do you understand? I don't think they... I think in a lot... Look, I'm a very common sense person. I think that they probably don't always poll. Some of them probably never poll. What's the difference between 49 to 51 and 47.5?
Well, it's also a tiny percentage of the population. I don't think it's representative of the overall population. I just don't think
I don't know of one person in my whole life that ever got called by a pollster.
Exactly. That's my point. So here's my question.
But I shouldn't say that because I'm doing very, really well in the polls.
But I think that's...
So this week I happen to believe in a verse. I only believe if they're good. No. I like them this month. But no, I honestly believe that there's probably a lot of fraud. I had a poll, Washington Post, ABC, in the Hillary thing on Wisconsin. They had me down 17 points the day before the election. I knew it was wrong because I had a rally. I had 29,000 people at a racetrack, and it was like 0 degrees, Wisconsin. And they had me down 17 points. In other words, you had no chance. And I won. And I called up my pollster, who's a good guy, good guy, and I believe he's legitimate. And, you know, some of them aren't, some of them aren't. I said, tell me, why did they have me down so much? I mean, nobody's going to believe them the next time. They said they don't care. When you're down 17 points, people are going to stay home. They're not going to vote.
Right.
Because they're going to say, I love Trump, but I'm not going to waste my time. It's cold out. I said, but why do they make it 4 or 5? He said, at 4 or 5, they're going to go and vote. At 17, they're not going to go and vote.
So
think of it. This is a Washington Post, ABC poll. I was down 17 points in Wisconsin, and I won. It's crooked stuff.
There's a lot of crooked stuff, and I wanted to talk about that too, because one of the things that people talk about with you is the denial of the results. And I think J.D. Vance did a brilliant job the other day when he was being interviewed, and they asked him, did Trump lose the 2020 election? And he turned it around and said, was there legitimate election interference in suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story on social media? And was that a concerted effort?
Well, they say it made 10-point difference, and I lost by one tenth of a point.
But
they say it was 22,000 votes. But look, it was much more than that, and I appreciate J.D. Vance saying that. And by the way, I think he was a great pick. Do you like J.D. as a
I like
pick?
him a lot. Yeah.
You're allowed to say that.
No, I do. I like him a lot.
I
think he's a brilliant guy, and I think his ability to talk like a normal human being. You did my friend Theo Vaughn's podcast,
right,
and he just did it.
How did he do it?
He did great. He just talks like a normal human being.
Is that why you called me to do this?
No. I was.
He was a nice
once
guy.
they shot you, I was like, he's got to come in here. It's all about timing. It's all about the timing. I think timing's perfect. Do you even have a scar on your ear? You got anything on there?
I do.
Let me say.
Did you guys know that I share well, I guess with Trump as well at this point, but I share a degree of separation with J.D. Vance, because I'm friends with the guys and gals that are friends with the Dime Square people, and they're friends with some of these writers, these figures that are friends or in the same circles as J.D. Vance. So yeah, I share a degree of separation with J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, I guess, also. Isn't that funny?
So right over here.
Oh, it's a tiny little mark.
It zicked right there.
Yeah. It healed up pretty fucking good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's little. It's not like some of the wrestlers, some of the UFC fighters.
No, you didn't get cauliflower.
No. It was sort of like a top shot.
Mm-hmm.
The point of the bullet was a little of the but you see the thing's taken off a little bit. But it makes me a tougher guy. You know the fighters. The fighters love their. Bo Nickel is a great fighter.
Yeah, I love Bo Nickel.
How's he going to do? I think he's terrific.
He's great. He's fantastic.
He was almost like undefeated.
Isn't it weird how, as a society, everybody just stopped talking about the Trump assassination attempt? Everybody just moved on from it so quickly. I feel like if he actually did get killed, it would be bigger than JFK or 9/11, probably. But since he didn't, everybody was just like, and moved on. Now, if it happened in like the 90s or early 2000s, people would still be talking about it. I guess just how our news cycles are now, where everybody just moves on from things so quickly and doesn't linger on anything. But yeah, isn't that just kind of weird?
Defeated in college.
He's a fantastic wrestler and one of the best mixed martial artists.
When is he fighting again?
He's fighting in Madison Square Garden in November.
Oh, that's going to be after the election?
Yep.
So I'll either go as president or I'll be depressed and I won't bother going. I think they're having a fight right now.
One of the things that was fascinating also was the denial of the election results is a pretty common thing. Hillary Clinton famously denied that she called you an illegitimate president, and she said that Russia put you in place.
Even though she conceded.
Yes.
She conceded the night of the election because she was beaten.
Yes, and it was a thing that was pretty common for people, especially Democrats, to deny the elections. There's been many of them. The Bush administration, the dangling Chads, all that stuff.
Well, look at these guys in Congress. All these sleazebags in Congress that are Democrats, they're still denying 2016. But now they don't so much because, they try and pin it on me. You don't hear them say it.
But
they denied it right up until the end.
My point is, this idea of election fraud is a forbidden topic, and you get labeled an election denier. It's like being labeled an anti-vaxxer if you question some of the health consequences that people have from the COVID-19 shots. Oh, my God, you're an anti-vaxxer. If you say, and what I say publicly, and I've said this a lot, it's not 0%. So if you ask me, what is the amount of election fraud in this country? Is it 0%? No one thinks it's 0%. I've never met one person, not a super liberal, progressive, far-left person or a right-wing conservative, not one person thinks it's 0%. They think when you have human beings, and also you have a lot of weirdness that was going on during the 2020 elections, particularly with mail-in ballots.
And you had legislatures that had to approve, and they didn't approve, and they went out and did it anyway. And you had old-fashioned ballot screwing. I mean, you had you have people going up and dropping in phony votes. You had unsigned ballots, et cetera, et cetera.
There's certain people that think that they have, and the rhetoric is also that you're Hitler, and that in order to stop Hitler, you have to do whatever it takes.
That was okay, yeah.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, you're hearing this now. Kamala compared you to, said your love of Hitler yesterday.
Kamala's a very low IQ person. She's a very low IQ. I'm for taking tests, too. I think anybody that runs for president should give them tests. And it's not an age thing. It's not based on, if you look back on history, 70s and 80s, some of your greatest leaders in the world history, long-time world history, they were in their 70s and their 80s. But I think you should take cognitive tests. I think everybody, they say it's unconstitutional. But I think Kamala should have a test because there's something missing. There's something wrong with her.
Well, I think it's pressure. I think the pressure and the scrutiny, you've been a celebrity for a long time and you understand what this is like. But for someone who's in her late 40s, who becomes the vice president, who runs for president, becomes the vice president, and then...
She's an Indian woman. Enough with the black woman thing. All right.
All of a sudden, the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and there's all these people paying attention. A lot of people clam up.
But you either have it or you don't.
Correct.
Look, this is an interview. We've covered a lot of territory, right? And you know, it's fine. I don't care. I want to. I think it's much more interesting. To do an interview with Anderson Cooper, a crazy softball interview. She took 2 days off and she studied all day long, and then she comes out with a result that was a real embarrassment. That was a really bad interview. She couldn't answer a question, and every question's not answered. I mean, like, what would you do your first day in office? Okay, I'll build a wall. I won't build a wall. There's 100 things you can say. Just say anything, right? There's something off with her.
Well,
we're dealing with the smartest people. They hate when I say, when I call President Xi, they said, he called President Xi brilliant. Well, he's a brilliant guy. He controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, whether you like it or not. And they go crazy.
Right. It doesn't mean he's not evil, or it doesn't mean he's not
of course not.
dangerous.
But actually, we have evil people in our country.
Yes.
If you have a smart president, he can deal with Russia. He can deal with all of it. Russia would have never gone into Ukraine if I were president.
How would you have stopped it?
Automatic, 2 things. I told him. I said, Vladimir, you're not going in. I used to talk to him all the time. You're not going in. I can't tell you what I told him, because I think it would be inappropriate. But someday he'll tell you. But he would have never gone in. But you know why else he wouldn't have gone in? Oil prices at $40 a barrel wouldn't have allowed him, wouldn't have given him the money to prosecute that war, wouldn't have given him the money. I said it with I was with President Xi. I said it was almost the same conversation. With Vladimir, it was Moscow. With President Xi, it was Beijing. It was almost the exact same conversation. I said, don't do it. He would have never done it. The day I left, they flew 28 bombers over the middle of Taiwan. 28 bombers. And it's the apple of his eye, and the same thing with Russia. It's the apple. Ukraine is the apple of his eye. I used to talk to him. I had a very good relationship with him. He wouldn't have done it. He would have never done it. But he also wouldn't have done it because of one of the reasons that what happened is, number one, he doesn't respect Biden at all. Not even a little bit. And who the hell would? But he doesn't respect him. But when he saw what happened in Afghanistan, how horribly that was handled, number one, you take the soldiers out last, not first. Okay, that was their big mistake. And we had that thing charted out, and they weren't obeying us. They weren't. Abdul is the head of the Taliban. Boom, boom. He had to do all these things. Some he didn't do. I said, nope, you're not doing. You got to do them all. This guy immediately took he left the equipment behind. 13 soldiers did, but he took everybody out. He took his soldiers out before. A child would know. That's where Milley was so stupid. He was such a stupid guy, Milley. Okay, those generals should have all been fired. The people that were involved with Afghanistan should have all been fired. Then they'd be writing books about him, how stupid he was and bad he was. But you take your soldiers out last. I had a big rally, and I saw a child in the front row about a year and a half ago, and I called the child up. I said, do you mind if I borrow your child? Oh, yes, please. And they came up, kids 5 years. I gave them quick details, I said, we want to get out of this place, and we have this, and we have this, and we have the equipment. I gave them a little thing. I said, do you take your soldiers out first or last after everything's done? You take them out last, sir. A child would know that. We took our soldiers out first. And we left Bagram.
Well, not only that, we left billions of dollars worth of equipment and military vehicles that they use for parades now.
The best equipment, to embarrass us, the best equipment in the world.
The Taliban parade, where they've got tanks rolling down the streets and Blackhawks flying, is the craziest thing I've ever seen. The fact that we left all that stuff there.
The best equipment in the world behind.
What would you have done differently?
Well, number one, we would have taken it out. Just so just go back a little bit further. I had a couple of conversations with Abdul. And from the time I had those conversations, because they were shooting our soldiers, with the sniper stuff, they were shooting a lot of them. They were shooting a lot with Obama, much less with me, but they were shooting them. And I said, get this guy on the phone. The press went nuts when they heard this. I had a great conversation with him. It was a tough conversation. 18 months later, there wasn't one soldier that was ever shot at. And even Biden admitted it in a moment of stupidity, because he shouldn't have admitted it. His people went nuts. He said, yeah, well, I will admit, no soldier. We didn't have a soldier killed in 18 months in Afghanistan. Not one soldier was killed, because he understood what was going to happen. If that happened.
Didn't even know when Biden supposedly ended the Afghanistan war and stuff. I didn't even know that was a war still going on. I thought that ended around the time Osama was killed, if I'm being honest.
I didn't have one soldier.
I knew there was people over there, but I didn't think it was actually a thing still going on, really.
Then when I left, after having gotten more votes than any sitting president in the history of the country, and much more votes than I got in 2016. When I left, they started shooting our soldiers. But more importantly, what they did is they did that whole thing with, leaving. He shouldn't have left. Number one, should have left from Bagram, because Bagram's this massive base. It's got tremendous acreage around it, tremendous. It's a very big, it was built many years ago. And part of the reason you wouldn't have taken that is because it goes to China. 1 hour from where China makes its nuclear missiles. You should have never left Bagram. Number one, they should have left from Bagram. They should have left last. They should have got, we have Americans that are still there. They should have taken all their equipment out. Everything, every plane, every screw should have been taken out. Every tent.
I might skip
and
through
I said that, that's what
some of this stuff because it's not that. It's
realized that really was
it's not that interesting content. I feel like it's stuff that people have heard a bunch of times, and also like you can just watch this full Joe Rogan thing by yourself.
Dummy, I said, we're leaving, but I want to get everything out. Sir, it's cheaper to leave it. I said, what do you mean
cheaper to leave
Yeah,
it?
he said it's cheaper to leave it. That was
cheaper.
Cheaper. He said it's cheaper. Sir,
not more dangerous.
He just said cheaper. I said, I want every plane. I want every tank. I want the goggles. They have night goggles. They have all this stuff that these guys now have. He said, sir, it's cheaper to get out and leave it. I said, so you think it's cheaper to leave a $150 million brand new airplane in there than it is to fly it out with a tank of jet fuel and put it in Pakistan or just fly it directly back? It's cheaper to leave. I said, this guy's nuts. I'm telling you, he was so stupid. He was so unwise. He was like an unwise man. And there were a number of them. But I defeated ISIS with the greatest generals. I had a guy who was so great. I flew to Iraq, and I met the real generals, not these idiots that we deal with. And we knocked out, I defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate. They said it would take 5 years. I did it in a matter of a few.
If you see my head down like this, it's because I'm eating food. And I don't want to be rude, like, on camera, like a lot of streamers and podcasters do, which is gross. Isn't ISIS still a thing? Like, from my knowledge, like a lot of these terrorist groups, like Al Qaeda and stuff, don't they continue regardless of if you kill the leader or not? That's what I thought. I mean, nobody talks about ISIS or Al Qaeda anymore because they're pretty irrelevant in today's culture, but in world affairs. But that's what I thought. Why is this not playing?
Literally a few weeks, and we hit them hard. And he said, "So we're gonna hit him here, we're gonna hit him there, we're gonna hit him here, there." And I said, "This guy's great. I like this guy." I was told it would take 5 years. That's why I went. I said, how could it take 5 years? We have brand new fighters. We have the best planes, the best weapons, the best guns, the best bombs. How could it possibly take that long? And I flew in, left at 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody knew I was going. I got on Air Force One and we started flying. And when we reached about half an hour away from Iraq, that was where the airport was, big airport, about a half an hour away, they said, sir, I'm sorry, you'll have to turn off all your lights. Why? We're getting close to our site, our land. I said, you mean we spent $8 trillion and we can't leave the lights on? Think of this, 20 years, $8 trillion and we can't leave the lights on in a plane. I said, that's okay, turn the lights on. I'm not going to fight them. That's
well, this is because it's too dangerous?
Yeah, too dangerous, because they see the light up in the air.
They'll
shoot at it, So I said, turn the lights off. Then they said, so we're going to also pull your shades if that's okay. I said, that's okay. The plane was pitch black, all the lights outside, the blinking, they go on the blinking reds, they were all turned off. And I like to sit with pilots a lot of times, and these guys are specimens. I always say, they're better looking than Tom Cruise, okay? And they're even taller. Like perfect specimens. These guys, like for a fighter, you have some guys that are perfect.
Enough with the manlet. I'm so sick of the manlet bashing. Taller than Tom Cruise. What's wrong with Tom Cruise's height? Okay. He's also a 5'6", well, more of a 5'2" kind of guy that likes 5'10" women. Okay. What is wrong with that? Alright. A lot of famous and macho people are that height, like Bruce Lee, Napoleon Bonaparte, Ash Montoya. A lot of people are that height. What is wrong with that? We're all handsome guys. All right, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And they picked the best pilots in the Air Force, United States Air Force, to fly Air Force One. And I get up there, and I'm sitting, and I'm feeling my way up. It's up on the 747, so you go through the stairs, but I sort of knew my way up. There wasn't a light in the plane. I'm saying, can you imagine? We spent trillions of dollars, and we're trying to fly in blind. But I got into the plane. The cockpit is dark black, little tiny light. You could see the pilot, a perfect-looking human being. His co-pilot, everybody was perfect. They were all like movie stars. It's like I could have cast a movie with these guys, and nobody would believe it because they were too good-looking. So I said, how are we doing, Captain? Sir, we'll be landing in 10 minutes. And I look outside. There's not a light. And I'm saying, I've landed a lot of planes. And you see like little lights at least. There's nothing. It's just pure desert. And I said, okay, Captain, good. But I'm looking. Now you've been in many planes where it has the computer sign saying 1,000 feet. Goes 1,900, 800. It's a computer voice, but it sounds like, but it's an incredible voice. 700. I said, Captain, are we okay? Are we okay, Captain? There's no lights. And I'm looking, normally when you land a plane, because I sit with pilots a lot, I think it's great. I think it's a great profession, everything. They're incredible. These machines are incredible. He said, sir, we're fine. No problem, sir. I said, I don't see the lights up there, Captain. Sure, we're okay. So, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit. Probably with exaggerating, they'll tell the story. They'll say, Trump was a coward. So I'm sitting with him. He goes, 500. And I'm telling you, there wasn't a light on the runway, nothing. And we're going in. You okay, Captain? Everything good? Yes, sir. No problem. We'll be down in about 1 minute, sir. And I'm telling you, Joe, there's always a light. There's not a little pin. And all of a sudden, psh, and you hear, wah, wah, perfect landing like glass. That's how good. I mean, these guys, between the equipment and it's genius. It's pure. It was so dark, you couldn't see a thing. There was no runway. You wouldn't know where the hell you are. You're in the middle of a desert. And then I got out of the plane. I said, thank you, Captain. That's a great job. And then I got out of the plane, and I'm going down, and I see a general and another general. And I see a staff sergeant, a drill sergeant, and various guys, all central casting. Central casting. They said, sir, would you like to rest? I said, I don't want to rest. I want to figure out what the hell are we doing with ISIS. I'm hearing we can't. It's going to take years. No, sir, we can do it very quickly, sir. And anyway, we go into the room. Biden would have taken a nap for 4 days and then left without a meeting. So we go into the room, and they have these guys. I say, how long can you do it? How long? We can do it in a couple of weeks, sir. I said, wait a minute. They told me 5 years. We can do it in, I don't know, he gave me a number like in no time. I said, why haven't you done it? Because the orders came in from Washington, sir, and they would come here and tell us what to do. Don't you challenge us? We're not allowed to do that, sir. That's not the military way. They tell us what to do, and we have to respect them.
So do you think that it was incompetence why they didn't go after ISIS?
I think it's a bad system. When Mattis goes there or when Milley goes there who's stupid, and they tell these guys that are actually smart what to do, and the guys that are smart are saying, we don't like what they're doing, but they're not allowed to sort of counteract. Plus, the guys that went there are arrogant. They're arrogant fools. They're like stupid fools. The way they pulled out of, the way they, as an example, the way they pulled out of Afghanistan with the people falling off the planes. It was worse than Vietnam with the helicopters falling. It was so bad. There was no reason for it. Anyway, so we knocked them out. And, I mean, we have great military. We have great people, but not the television guys. And I rebuilt the military, and then they gave a chunk of it. Now, you have to tell, as much as it is, it's a tiny little piece. Believe it or not. We have an unbelievable. I rebuilt the military. I rebuilt our nuclear. And in a way, I hated to redo it, but I got to realize how powerful that nuclear is, Joe. One bomb, Israel was gone, but forget. One bomb can take out the entire East Coast. It's so bad. And I watch these poor fools talking about our oceans will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 500 years. I mean, we have countries. Right now you have 5 countries. And don't underestimate North. If you take a look at North Korea, I was there. I mean, I was with Kim Jong. I had a great relationship. I got along great with him. The president, he got along great. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. Obama thought we were going to go to war with North Korea. When I met with Obama just prior to the takeover, you meet, you have a sort of a ceremonial meeting. But it lasted a long time, a lot longer than it was supposed to.
That's the thing, too. Like, I didn't see anything wrong with that. Like, are we supposed to just hate every world leader there is and not get along with anybody? I mean, which one do you prefer? Getting along with everybody or being a warmonger against everybody? A world police. That is what I like about Trump. He tries making peace with people, not just bombing brown people just because.
I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea. By the time I finished, we had no problem with North Korea. It was a little tough at the beginning, remember? Mm-hmm. He said, I have a red button on my desk. I said, I have a red button also, but mine's bigger than yours and mine works.
I liked how you called him Little Rocket Man.
I said, yeah, Little Rocket. I said, Little Rocket Man, you're going to burn in hell. And it was a rough, so rough that people were worried. This is crazy. And then one day I got a call, sort of like a fight. I got a call. You ever see one pounding? Then all of a sudden, but I got a call. And it was from him, meaning his people. They wanted to meet. They wouldn't meet Obama. He tried to meet. They wouldn't even talk to him about it. And I think he expected to go to war. I actually do. I believe he expected to go. And we checked their nuclear stockpile. It is substantial. I mean, I said, do you do anything? I got to know him very well. I got to know him better than anybody. And I said, do you ever do anything else? Why don't you go take it easy and relax? Go to the beach. You have beautiful beach, nice beachfront property. Kiddingly. I said, you're always building nuclear. Just relax. You don't have to do it. Let's build some condos on your shoreline. They actually have gorgeous stuff. And he said, I just have to do it because I need it for my safety, etc. I got to know him very well. We had no problem with him. If you have a smart problem, if you have really the right president, a smart president, you're not going to have a problem. And I say it to people. We have a bigger problem, in my opinion, with the enemy from within. And it drives them crazy when I use that term.
Right,
but we have an enemy from within. We have people.
He's probably the reason why you're here.
I don't know, maybe.
He's one of the big ones.
He is the greatest guy.
I
always say, nobody's indispensable. Everybody can be replaced. Maybe you can't be. You might not be. But Dana White, truly, I don't think, the things he sold it for $4 billion. I said, what the hell? Who the hell is going to pay $4 billion? And they made like a great deal. I mean, because of him. Take him out, I think it's a whole different.
No, he's the best.
And he's also the greatest guy. He spoke at the whole thing with, I had just been shot, and he got up and he spoke so better than anybody. I mean, who would be better to introduce you? I asked of all the people, and I know the biggest people in the world, and they all would have loved to have done it. I said, Dana, would you do it? It was interesting. He was away. And he said to the people that, one of my guys called, he said, I won't be able to do it. I just left with my wife and family. I said, he said, no, yeah. I was a little surprised, even though I knew he was very far away. He was in some place, and he deserved it with his family, the whole thing. And then I said, all right, let's enter. So we're looking who we're going to get. And all of a sudden she comes in, Sir Dana White just said he's going to do it, and he's coming back in tonight. He's taking it. But, the guy is just an incredible guy. And he's like a tough champion, but...
Start promoting boxing now. And with Dana at the helm of it, I think boxing could return because the thing is...
Skipping a lot of this because this is not that interesting.
Want to make...
And I've been drinking all night long, and I am fed up with the Joe Rogan Experience.
Fights that other people, maybe, promoters don't want to make because they want to protect their fighter. Controversial fights where, it's dangerous. Like, you don't know, this guy could lose. And so this...
I don't watch UFC. Okay.
That was like an easy fight. That was a very easy fight. Randy Couture just took him down and
it was the most, and he's half the size. And he just, once he, Big Pharma wasn't thrilled when they heard that, I have a relation. I've actually always gotten along very well with him. I've known him a long time. He's a different kind of a guy. He's very smart, great guy. And he's very sincere about this. I mean, he really is. He thinks we spend a fortune on pesticides and all this stuff, and then you end up with... That chart is a terrible chart, the one previous. It's such a bad chart when you look at where we are compared to other countries that don't spend 10 cents.
Right.
So, and you save a lot of money. But, yeah, I've had some people that aren't exactly thrilled. You can imagine, right?
Sure.
It's a good question, actually.
Well, certainly if there
it doesn't affect me.
Some pharmaceutical drugs that have been prescribed that have negative consequences that these people have been profiting off of, and then you have a guy like RFK Jr. who spends an enormous amount of time highlighting those things, you could say how they've been very reluctant to have you support him.
I would say that's an understatement, yes.
Yeah. So what do you do to stop that from getting in the way?
Well, look, they've come up with some amazing things. I mean, I don't know how you feel. I know you're against certain vaccines, but like the polio vaccine, people had polio. It was like a disaster. And they came up, Dr. Salk, and he came up with a vaccine, and there's no polio. Now, very interesting, there hasn't been polio, but now in the Gaza Strip, can you believe that? Have you heard that? There's been a big strain of polio coming out in the Gaza Strip.
Is it vaccine-derived polio? Because, there's a strain of polio that comes directly from the vaccine, because unfortunately sometimes we vaccinate people for polio, you actually give them polio.
I haven't heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all I can do is I sit down and I listen to him, and I'll give it a total. I would love him to be right. Because if he's right, it's a lot less expensive generally.
There's two things that people point to when they point to the dangers of the pharmaceutical drug industry. One thing is when pharmaceutical drugs were allowed to advertise on television. We're only one of two countries in the world that allow pharmaceutical drugs to advertise on TV. The other one's New Zealand, but they're more restrictive than we are.
But those ads, when you hear take a certain drug,
and then you hear all the consequences.
You say it causes cancer and baldness. We don't like baldness.
Suicidal
and
ideation.
They said that and eyesight, and you can lose your vision.
Yeah.
And I actually asked one of these guys. I would never take. I mean, of course, there's things that are so bad. They go through a whole list. I guess they save some liability, but man, I said, does that affect the purchase? And they say it really does. When there's something you have and you read, and then they go through the list of
side effects.
The potential.
If you want to have a happy and healthy life, you don't fucking take that shit. That's why Zoomers are all really messed up, is because they've been on those pills since they were a kid, so they grew up really depressed and dumb and moody and weird. I'm somebody that never took pills as a kid, and look at me, I'm fine. I am a healthy boy. I drink, but that's what a man should do, is drink. Not too much, just enough. They shouldn't be taking pills that make you all sentimental and, oh, what's wrong with me, or oh, woe is me, and ba 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 ba. Alright. If you take pharmaceutical drugs, you might as well just you're better off being an alcoholic or like anything else, really. I mean,
potential side. It's not even the potential side effects.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people are just. I asked that question. People hear that. When I hear it, I'm going to take a pass. It says may affect your vision, may cause blindness, may this.
Yes.
But
well, I know you're aware of Callie and Casey means, right?
Yes.
Well, one of the things that they pointed out, and this is a very important thing for people to understand, is what a lot of these drugs do is they act to somehow or another mitigate the effects of poor metabolic health. But most of these problems that these people are suffering from wouldn't exist if we put an emphasis on metabolic health. If people got healthier, they started eating nutritious food and taking vitamins, a whole host of these problems that people are having would go away. And the problem with that from the pharmaceutical drug standpoint is they wouldn't be able to sell drugs to these people. And this is a fear
and the
that a lot of people
pesticides
have.
and things like that on the plants. And what do you think of that?
It's terrible. Well, I think regenerative agriculture, unfortunately, is very difficult to scale to a point where you got a Jack in the Box on every corner.
Right, that's right.
If everybody wants food, and we have food deserts, and we have places like Los Angeles where no one's growing anything, and everything has to be shipped in, and it's very difficult to feed that many people. We've created this incredible society where we have these enormous cities, but it's very difficult to get food to these people. And then for a lot of these people in low-income areas, the only food that's available is cheap, unhealthy food.
That's right.
And we could fix that. That's if we could send $175 billion to Ukraine, we could do something to fix a lot of the health problems that the United States has. And I think it would help us as a nation overall. If you just put it out there that, hey, as a nation, we're going to make a concerted effort to get people healthier. Just put it out there, and people start making better choices.
Well, when you look at that chart,
it's crazy.
They just gave me that chart because they said you may want to discuss this topic, which I know is a big topic for you. And when I looked at that chart and I looked at how unhealthy we are as a nation, that's a pretty big thing.
How are you so healthy? Is it golf?
No, it's genetics, I believe. I'm a big
genetics
believer.
is a big factor.
I really am. I mean, my father was.
Unfortunately,
that is a thing. Genetics is a thing. If I look at my family and myself, like for example, well, more on my dad's side, like my mom's side, like I had a grandma that died of alcoholism. Was it called is it cirrhosis of the liver? What do you call that? When you drink so much alcohol that you literally throw up blood and your liver dies. What the fuck's that called? My grandma died of that, but that's my mom's side. But my dad's side, people abuse their bodies. On my dad's so much abuse of alcohol, even pills and stuff like that. Even including myself, like I've done things like eat unhealthy or whatever, and we're fucking fine, dude. We can, like, I have a grandma that eats so unhealthy, dude. Pops so many pills and she's still alive after like decades. And seems fine. Doesn't even seem that like unhealthy or sick. Just like, yeah, I'm fine. So yes, genetics is a very real thing. Some people can just handle certain things better than other people. So I think Trump is right in this case.
Is a big factor for health. Some people are just way more robust, but you do play golf a lot, and that is exercise.
Both of my parents. For me, it's good.
Fresh air.
It really is. It's fresh air. You're outside. Even mentally, you're focused on that 3-footer, and for a couple of hours, you're not. And I go quick. I play fast, real fast, and I'm in, I'm out. But it gives me. I was never one that could like run on a treadmill. And I can do it. When passing a physical, they asked me to run on a treadmill, and then they make it steeper and steeper and steeper. And the doctor said it was at Walter Reed. They said, it's unbelievable. I'm telling you, I felt I could have gone all day. But I said, Doc, I can do this all day long. I have no problem. But it's boring to me. Do you understand?
Right.
It's just boring.
Golf's exciting.
But I did it for so long. They couldn't believe it that I did it. And I never, I don't do it. I don't really, I have friends that run in this stuff all day long. But I had no problem doing it. But it's really boring. So with golf or something, or tennis or whatever.
Right.
But golf, as you get older, there's something really good about it. And you have competition with your friends.
Concentration,
and it's a great handicap sport.
And it's also a thing, I think, it cleans your mind, because when you're looking at a shot, that's all you can think of when you're executing.
It gives you a couple of hours. It's interesting. Like with tennis, if you're much better than somebody, you can't really play with somebody. It doesn't work. You can give them sort of the equivalent of strokes, right? But it's not the same. With golf, you can play with a lousy guy and give him a stroke a hole or 2 strokes a hole or something. It's a good handicapping sport.
Right.
But it gives me a little exercise. But I haven't played in a long time. I won a lot. I won 32 club championships.
Didn't you play right after you got shot?
No. What I did is I played with Bryson DeChambeau. Do you know Bryson?
Yes.
The pro.
Uh-huh.
He's a great player. and we played. It was a certain thing that we played, I guess called Breaking 50 or something. 50 we play from a certain tee, and if you can break 50. And it got tremendous ratings. It was sort of like a crazy thing. It got he's a great guy.
But wasn't that like a couple of days after you got shot?
I don't know. I know I haven't.
That was one of the funniest things. You were on the golf course.
I think I did. Yeah, maybe I did. But I view it very interestingly. I'm running for president of the United States. To me, it's such a big deal. It's so important. So
it's the biggest deal in the free world.
It's 100 times bigger than the Super Bowl, and it's one person.
Yeah.
So you're down to 2 people, and we start off at 9 billion, because you have 9 billion, they say, in the world. Who knows what that number is? But you get down to 350.
Oh shit. Nobody in today's day of age. Is my audio working? I think my mic unplugged a bit. Yeah, it's working. Nobody cares about the Super Bowl. Nobody, dude. I mean, what a dinosaur thing to care about. Does anybody care about the Super Bowl or the halftime show? And the music artists, I don't even know who's playing at this next Super Bowl, but the music artists they pick are people that are relevant like 20 years ago. Like, who gives a fuck about the Super Bowl? Let's be real here.
50 million. Sadly, we have no idea what we have in this country, but let's assume it's 325, 350. And you're down to 2 people. It's the biggest thing in the world. And when I heard she took off yesterday and she took off the day before and she's going to take off tomorrow or the next day, I haven't taken a day off in 56 days. That's a long time. I haven't taken one day off. I don't want to play golf. This is too exciting. Golf is great, but this is too exciting. This is more exciting than anything you can do. And
also, it's the home stretch.
It's the home stretch. Who would take a day off? So we have 11 days left now. And think of it. So I think I've gone 54, 55 days in a row. No days off. And I make speeches oftentimes, sometimes not, but I make speeches. And when you make a speech, and my speeches last a long time because of the weave, I weave stories into it. And if you just read a teleprompter, nobody's going to be very exciting. You got to weave it out. So but you always have to, as you say, you always have to get right back to it. Yeah. Otherwise, it's no good. But the weave is very, very important. Very few weavers around. But it's a big strain on your, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You got to be careful with the voice. You can lose that voice. The voice wasn't designed. I said today, so I made a big one last night. I was in Las Vegas. A big one the night before in Arizona. Big one. I mean, they're all big. There's never been anything like it in terms of crowd. Never been close. Never been close. They say, he talks about crowds. Says, what's very interesting? So we get crowds that are really big. And I say, I've never had a story, because I don't get good press. I don't think I've had a good story in years. I really don't. I swear, I don't think you were talking about it a little bit with Oprah. Everybody loved me. I don't think, I became president of the United States. I did great the second time. I did much better. I don't want to get you in any disputes, but I won that second election so easy, and not just because.
But let me get to that. I want to talk to you about that. But
here's the thing: I did that, and now I've gotten the nomination again. And don't forget, to get these nominations, you go against very smart people. Ron DeSantis was hot; got to go through him. Nikki Haley was hot; got to go through her. I went through everybody. Record time, right? Record time. I got 3 nominations.
Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are not smart people at all.
Zero. Won the first time, did much better the second time. I get millions of votes more the second time, and now I'm doing it a third time. And it's an incredible thing. I never get a good story. I only get bad press. Now, I will say this. It's a lot easier if you're a Democrat. If I were a Democrat...
You get a lot of positive press.
I would get a lot of positive press.
No, it's a creepy, corrupt business. And the media, to a large extent, acts as a propaganda arm for the Democratic Party.
It's not even believable.
Yeah, it's bizarre to watch. And most young people, I think, are aware of it. I think most boomers still, unfortunately, read the newspapers and believe in CNN.
But it's getting younger. Let me tell you, it's getting, for us, for a conservative.
Yes.
And I consider myself a person.
It's the internet. It's because the internet's giving people information that they're not getting from anywhere else. And they like the very fine people hoax, the Russiagate hoax, all these different things that they've done. They try to pin on you. That's like it's a clear distortion of what you actually said.
The bloodbath hoax.
Yeah,
I was talking about the auto industry.
Yes.
It's a bloodbath because Japan and China are taking our auto. And I said, it's a bloodbath. They said, he used the word bloodbath.
He said, if you don't win, it's going to be a bloodbath.
That's
right.
They're
going to take over.
It's exactly a terrible thing they do.
But that's the problem with propagandists, because they take things out of context, and ultimately what they do is they diminish their own credibility, because people don't want to listen to them anymore, because they see that they've done that, and they recognize what's going on, and they feel insulted. Their intelligence is
look
insulted.
At the ratings.
Yes.
Shows like yours. So I have a son who's very smart and tall, Barron, right? And he knows all about you. He knows about guys I never heard of. He said, Dad, you don't know how big they are. They're big. He's telling me how big. I said, who the hell is he? Like Ross. He said, Dad, he's a great guy. Guys that are doing, it's a whole new world out there.
It's a different world. And
but, I'm on TikTok now.
Congratulations.
And I've done really well. No, but the crazy, have you seen the numbers? Billions of hits. It's crazy.
I'm sure. TikTok's a wild application.
And I've gone up 30 points. A Republican is always down 30 with young people. I'm plus 30. And I'm on TikTok.
I think
it's had a huge impact.
young people are rejecting a lot of this woke bullshit.
Yeah,
young people are tired of being yelled at and scolded. They're tired of these people that they think are mentally ill telling them what the moral standards of society should be today. People are upset.
There's a big difference now, but even in just a couple of years, I was shaking hands with people. They're young people.
The rebels are Republicans now. They're like, you want to be a rebel? You want to be punk rock? You want to buck the system? You're a conservative now. That's how crazy. And
yes, a Republican, but not a neocon. If you want to be a rebel, you have to be a groifer. You have to be anti-Semitic. And if you want to be a true rebel,
and then the liberals are now pro silencing criticism. They're pro censorship online. They're talking about regulating free speech and regulating the First Amendment. It's bananas to watch.
Joe, they come after their political opponent.
Well,
I got more guys. I always say, I kid, but I'm not kidding. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the meanest of them all. He'd kill you in 2 seconds if he didn't like you, right? I've been under investigation more than Alphonse Capone, only because it's political opponent stuff. And I've won. I won the big case in Florida. I'm winning the other stuff. You win. But you know what they did? They did something that's only done in third world countries. They came after their political opponent.
Yes.
I could have put Crooked Hillary in jail.
Well, not only that, but they're weaponizing it by saying that that's what you're going to do once you get in office. By ignoring what they're doing right now. It's crazy.
I heard it. Somebody was defending me today. They said, no, they say that's what you're doing to him. They're going, he's going to put us in jail. He's going to invest. That's what you're doing to him.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, will you do that? Will you do that to him, to them if you win? The presidency has tremendous power. I could have put Crooked Hillary
I
in
respected
jail.
that you didn't, because what you said was it would be bad for the country.
No, I couldn't even imagine. You have, first of all, Secretary of State, but more importantly, the wife of the President of the United States of America going into jail. And if you ever saw, when I'd say something about her, they'd all say, I didn't say it, I never said it. They say, lock her up, lock her. And I'd always go, take it easy, just relax, we're going to win this thing, take it easy, take it easy. And I'm telling you, I kept it down, just the opposite. Now they say, oh, Trump wanted to put her in jail. No, I saved her from going to jail. They had more stuff on her. And Comey had it, because when Comey got up, and he stupidly, because he's a stupid guy too, he's a stupid son of a bitch. He got up, Joe, and instead of saying she's innocent of all charges, he went over each charge. And each charge was a killer. And he'd go, and as far as her doing this, she's innocent. And this, and then she's only an unfair prosecutor for it. We go, but every time you heard these charges, they sounded so bad. They were bad. And all it was is he wanted more airtime. If he would have gone up and said, I've thoroughly investigated Hillary Clinton and she's done nothing that we feel is wrong, it would have ended. Instead, he wanted to be up there because he's a PR hound. He's a hog. And he starts going through and you know what he had? They had a huge problem because FBI is great. The people there, not the top people, the people, the real people, the people that work there. It's like the real generals that I told you about that defeated ISIS in record time. The FBI guys are great. I'll bet you I'd be at 95% in the FBI.
I bet that's right.
Underneath.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. So he goes with Hillary, and instead of just saying, he goes through each charge.
Right.
And even I was saying, man, those are bad charges.
Sounds terrible because
and this is before
her
I got
with those charges.
Don't forget, this is before I got there.
Right.
Now, he was trying to protect her, but he did her a great disservice.
Because he wanted attention.
He was stupid.
So I want to talk about 2020 because you said over and over again that you were robbed in 2020.
Yeah, totally.
How do you think you were robbed? Everybody always cuts you off. I'm going to allow.
Well, they not only cut you off. Well, what I'd rather do is we'll do it another time, and I would bring in papers that you would not believe. So many different papers. That election was so crooked. It was the most crooked election.
Okay, but give me some examples of how.
Well, let's start from the top and the easy ones.
Okay.
They were supposed to get legislative approval to do the things they did, and they didn't get it. In many cases, they didn't get it.
What things?
Anything.
Legislative approvals.
Like for extensions of the voting, for voting earlier, for this,
Right.
all different things. By law, they had to get legislative approvals. You don't have to go any further than that. If you take a look at Wisconsin, they virtually admitted that the election was rigged, robbed, and stolen. They wouldn't give access in certain areas to the ballots because the ballots weren't signed. They weren't originals. We could go into this stuff. We could go into the ballots, or we could go into the overall. I'll give you another one.
Are you going to present this ever? Do you think?
Let me just give you one more before. 51 intelligence agents come up that the laptop was from Russia. It turned out to be totally false.
51 former intelligence agents, right?
They say that made. I don't believe it's this much, but it doesn't happen. I won by I lost by I didn't lose, but they say I lost. Joe, they say I lost by 22,000 votes. That's like 1/10 of 1%, less than that. It's a tiny little thing. 22,000 votes spread over. That's spread over this period. So, 51 intelligence agents lied. They lied. They lied. They knew it was. It was Hunter's. It was from his bed. It was Hunter's laptop. They said it was created by Russia. Russia. It was the Russia hoax. The Russia hoax was a big hoax. It was all a big hoax. So
that's clear. That's one example. That is a good
example. That's a big example. They say it made a 17-point difference. That's a big example. But that's only one. And you could go into the ballots where they wouldn't give you access to the ballots. You could go into the ballot harvesting. You could go into $500 million for the lockboxes.
But just in terms of narrative, so there's two things, right? There's the Russia hoax. There's the collusion with Russia that was never proven, right? That's one.
Well, no, it's proven it didn't happen.
Right. Yeah. But they talked about it on television.
But it took 2.5 years to prove.
But not only that, but it was a constant narrative on television. So
Sure.
that's a constant narrative that gets into people's minds, especially low information people that just watch the news,
Sure.
that you're in collusion with Russia. So that's one.
Sure.
So that changes the narrative. And then you have the 51 former intelligence agents that work with the original Twitter and get them to remove links. You can't share it on DMs. You cannot share that story. They swept that story because they said it was Russian disinformation, even though they knew it was not.
100%.
So that's two examples that are real examples. Now, anyone who considers himself a legitimate, objective observer of American politics, if you really want the best person to win, you would want people to not lie. And the only reason why they got away with this lie was because they continually labeled you as this horrible threat to democracy and Hitler.
Yeah.
They kept saying you're going to be a dictator, ignoring the fact that you weren't a dictator for the 4 years where you were actually the president.
I was actually the opposite of a dictator. I was a very straight guy. But look, those three things, you take those three things. Each one of them by themselves causes the result to be different. Okay?
It does.
And then you can go into 100 other things. There's so many. We can't have corrupt elections, and we can't have open borders. You need to have a country. You need borders. You need fair elections. And I'll tell you the other thing you need is you need a free and fair press. One of the things I like about doing a show like this, can you imagine Kamala doing this show?
I could imagine her doing the show.
She'd be laying on the floor.
She was supposed to do it, and she might still do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to
I will talk to her like a human being. I will
if
try
she
to have
did
a
this kind of
conversation
an
with her.
interview with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics.
I think we'd have a fine conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her. I wouldn't try to interview her. I just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being. That was my goal, having her on, trying to get her to express herself.
Joe. Kamala, whatever fuck her name is. Nobody, that's the funny thing is, too, nobody actually, knows how to pronounce her name. All that everybody knows about her is that she's brat. She's not a human being, Joe. She's a reptilian. And she's not black. You know why she's not black? Because she's green. Like a reptile. And you know what else is green? Brat.
Just as I don't know if I don't think these formats are good. I don't think that two people. First of all, I hate the idea of the presidential debates because I hate the idea of a time limitation on complex ideas. Also, you have to break.
I think you have to have the debates, though.
Right, but the way they do the debates, I think, is the wrong way to do it. I think they should have a conversation. I think you and Kamala, you sit across the table with no one in the room but the two of you. Of course, you're not going to shout at each other. Of course, you're not going to insult each other.
I mean, it may get. They used to do it
Hopefully
that
it wouldn't, but that would be the way to do it.
They used to do it that way.
To put cameras on you with no one interfering with press with checking whether or not it's factual, especially when it's biased, because they check you all the.
I love that when I sped up this video and Joe's fingers are all like all spastic sped up. What do I have this video on? It's like what speed? I show speed 1.5 speed.
All those times, and they didn't check her with clearly things that were inaccurate, right? So have two people just have a conversation with us without a time constraint. And also this idea they cut off the microphone.
Well, no crowd.
No crowd. Crazy too, because you're good at working a crowd.
I would rather have a crowd.
Of course you would. You're good at crowds.
But I had no. So they gave me an alternative. I don't think he wanted to debate.
Why did they want no crowd?
Because
what was the
I think they thought I wasn't going to accept it. So I believe what they wanted to do is have me not accept. So they gave me a deal I couldn't refuse. And I said, I'll do it, okay? It's like the mob.
Right.
I'll take it. So they came to me and they said,
Godfather reference.
We'll debate Joe Biden.
Wow, a Godfather reference. The most famous Godfather quote of all time. Wow. We get it because you're from New York. Wow. An offer you couldn't refuse. I've never heard that before. Get the fuck out of here.
Biden, that thing got tremendous ratings too. That was crazy. But we'll debate Joe Biden, but you can't have a crowd. They also wanted sitting down. I said that's the only thing. I said, look, you got to stand up. You can't really sit down.
Right.
In the old days they did sit down a little bit, but
he gets tired.
You got to stand up. And they agreed to it. It was a very tough thing. It almost killed it. They wanted to have like desks. We said. I said I think we should stand up. And that was the only thing I asked for. I said we got to stand up. I thought it looked bad for the public, but they said no crowd and cut off the mic. And I said, I can live with it. I mean, I can live with it. And they thought I was going to reject it. And then they would say he didn't want to debate Sleepy Joe.
Right.
That's what they thought was going to happen.
Well, they tried to say that with you and Kamala as well. They tried to say that you didn't want to debate her as well.
No, but by the way, with her, number one, I'm leading. Number two, I didn't. They also said it with the primary. So I had like 10, 12 guys, right, in the primary. No stupid guys. I mean, they're governors and they're senators. They're not stupid people. Some are stupid, but not all of them. And all my guys said, you have to be in the debate. I said, why? I'm leading by 74 points. The closest guy to me, I'm like 60 points, 70 points higher. Why would I stand there like an idiot for 2 hours and let every one of them scream at me? I'm going to be the focus. What?
Right.
All right, a lot of this is like repeat, so I'm going to skip.
I think they're going to look at two things. They're going to say they should have had a primary, even if it was a short primary.
Yes.
They shouldn't have picked her. And then she's going to say I shouldn't have picked this guy.
She shouldn't have picked that guy.
That guy's
just
a disaster.
the lying about Tiananmen Square.
Everything.
Admitted, the military record, assistant coach versus head coach.
Too.
Yes.
Little thing. So I did McDonald's last week.
I saw that.
And I actually got a call from your friends at Google, from Sundar. That's pretty good, right? He said, this is the biggest thing we've had in years.
You at McDonald's?
At McDonald's. Did you know that? It was one of the...
It was funny.
Who's a great guy, by the way. But he said, this McDonald's thing, I want to tell you, it's one of the biggest things we've ever had on Google. It just hit. But the reason I did, and I actually, you never know about this stuff. I thought it was a throwaway.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think our conversation was a throwaway. But I thought,
you know what? You know how big the McDonald's thing was? Hold on. Somebody commented this pic to me. What? Man, that's not nice.
I thought I'd walk in, and that was only to highlight the fact. And I have a friend, he owns like 56 of these McDonald's, and he said, "You want to use one?" I said, "Yeah, I love it." So we went there, and the crowd was crazy. They had 28,000 people around it. The whole thing. Did you see the outside? It was crazy. The cars couldn't get through. Secret Service was not exactly thrilled. We had no idea what the hell. But I went into the place, and I did the French fry thing. And it just hit. But that's like in life. Sometimes you do. I thought it was like a quick throwaway. We're going to be there for 15 minutes. Then I said, I've worked here for 15 minutes, which is 15 minutes more than she worked here. She lied about McDonald's. And
is that proven that she never worked at McDonald's?
McDonald's has no information. No, she has no information. There's nobody. The manager said she never worked there. It was a certain place, and he said they never. No, she lied. She's a liar. You know what they do? They'll say, like, on any one of the questions, they'll say, it's the exact opposite of what I say.
Well, the McDonald's thing, too, people are like, well, how can you prove that or whatever? I know that because I know a few people that work for the state, and they have this thing, especially if they do things like welfare and stuff, is that they have this like program on their computer where they can actually look at, and they legally can do it, look at which job you worked at. And it has your like work history, address history, whatever. And they can look at anybody in the country. And so yeah, like for Kamala, whatever the fuck her name is, they some of those people probably looked her up, see if she worked at McDonald's, and saw that she did not actually work there. And so yeah, that is a thing you can actually prove in today's day of age.
He's against IVF, fertilization.
Right.
And it's the exact opposite. I came out immediately strongly in favor. And they do ads. I'm against it. It's wrong. On every single topic. And, she changed policies on 15. I've never seen anybody change on more than one. You can maybe get away with one. Her whole life, fracking, every single thing that she was for.
That's how, I remember one of my live streams I did, like, I think at the beginning of the year or something. One of the topics I did was, because people that have followed me for a while know I do a lot of videos and stuff about the Manson family, and Linda Kasabian, the Manson family. She died like in the beginning of the year, and it wasn't announced or anything. It wasn't in the news. The family didn't come out and say, yeah, she died. It was literally found out. People found her out that she died because of that thing I was talking about, the state workers. They looked her up on record, and it said death. It had her death certificate that she died. So that's how people find out about these things, about people not working at a certain place, these celebrities not working at a certain place, or celebrities dying and stuff, is because of that. It's literally in the system. And so yeah, you can find that stuff. If you know somebody like that, they can find that stuff out for you very quickly.
Or the confiscation of guns. She wants a confiscation. Now she's saying everybody should have a gun. In fact, we're going to get her a MAGA cap. I'm going to send her a MAGA cap. But she's changed, and I don't think people are buying it.
Well, some people are buying it because they want to buy it, because it's blue no matter who. There's a certain percentage of our population that's going to vote Democrat no matter what.
That's true.
They're pressured. Their community, their ideology. Left is good, right is evil.
I don't understand why. Okay, you have a wall, or you have I built 570 miles of wall. Everyone said, I built a lot of wall, exactly the stuff. But you have a border. What I don't understand is who would want people to come into our country from places unknown, like sometimes they'll say about a fighter, from parts unknown, right? Remember Haystacks Code, from parts, from parts unknown, the oldest, those are the oldest, that's even before you. But who would want people to come in, pouring into our country? We don't know anything about it.
But I want to ask you this. Why do you think they're doing that?
I think because...
Do you think they're trying to buy votes? Do you think they just want cheap labor? Like, what's the idea?
There's a couple of theories. They hate our country, they're stupid, or they want to buy votes. It's one of those three things.
Yeah.
Now they are trying to get people registered who don't even know what the country is.
And they're trying to give people amnesty, people that live here. They're trying to give them
amnesty, they want to give them citizenship, and they want to... Well, how about what happened...
If you think about the amount of money that they've given them when they've come here, the food stamps, the benefits that even our poor people aren't getting.
$200 billion, and that's a way low number. That's a way low. It's interesting. New York has always been like, sort of like always looking for money. They've spent $100 billion on this stuff. I don't know where and they're not getting the money from the federal government. It's crazy. And because the mayor came out and said, we can't live like this.
They investigated him.
He gets by the way, I called it. I said, he just got himself indicted. This group is stupid, but they're vicious. They're stupid people, but they're vicious people.
The 2020 elections, you say you have all this evidence that it was rigged. Why haven't you put this evidence in a consumable form? In what?
Oh, I did. I have books on it. And by the way, books have been written on it. We have an author named Hemingway, who is a great writer. She wrote a book on
Ernest?
it. Many books have been written on it. There are books that are... What's happened is judges don't want to touch it. They would say you don't have standing. They didn't rule on the merits. The merits never got there. The judges didn't have what it took to turn over an election.
Let's talk about the potential vulnerabilities for elections and election fraud. One of them is mail-in ballots. The other one is if someone can break into voting machines, if someone can hack voting machines. Those are two huge ones.
So Elon Musk, I think he said it publicly. I hope he did, because I wouldn't want to be the one. But he's a really smart guy, and he's a very good guy with computers, right? You'd say he's
one of the smartest people alive.
Anybody that can land that 20-story building and perfect.
Dude, I'm so sick of the fucking Elon glazing. I literally predicted that in my tweet when I was making predictions of this podcast that Elon glazing would happen. I'm so tired of the Elon glazing. That guy that yippee jumped up and down at the Trump rally. I'm so sick of Elon Musk. Twitter is worse because he's in there. I'm so sick of him. Alright, he has a trans kid. He knocked up a crackhead and gave their kid a stupid mathematical name you can't pronounce. Alright, math sucks. Math is for nerds. Alright, math is not fun. E equals MC squared, parentheses, times, shut the fuck up. Alright, I'm not in school anymore. I don't want to think of math equations. I don't want to see another math equation ever again. And, yeah, he has a trans kid. He knocked up a crackhead. And they gave their kid a stupid math equation name. He fucked Amber Turd. Is this really one of the smartest men to ever live? He wants to go to Mars. There's no fucking air in Mars. What's the fuck's the point of going to Mars if you can't fucking breathe there? Give me a fucking break, dude.
Starlink, while he's talking to me, while he owns Twitter.
And then he agrees to Starlink.
And he tweets 100 times a day.
He's an amazing guy. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's a fucking autiste.
He said to me that unless you have paper ballots, it can never be an honest election. That's a big statement.
It's a big statement.
We should go to paper ballots. France did. They went to mail-in voting, and it was all messed up.
What can
the amazing thing with the machines? So we have the machines. They cost 10 times. A paper ballot would cost 8%. And they make paper ballots. They're all watermarked and everything else. They're very sophisticated. But if you take a look, paper ballots, 8% the cost, and you're done by 9 o'clock in the evening, right? Now we have these sophisticated machine. It goes up to heaven. It goes all over the place and down and around. And they say, we'll need 2 weeks to figure out who the hell won the election.
Do you think that's by design?
Yeah, I do. I think it's very quick. That's my opinion.
You're allowed to have an opinion. Let's say you win in November. What can be done to mitigate these problems? What could be done at the level that the president has power?
Well, if I win, this will be my last election. But I think I owe it to the country. Yeah. But I think I owe it to the country. We have to have fair elections.
So how can you fix that?
Jimmy Carter was in charge of a commission, that many years ago. And they put him and Scoop Jackson and various senators, distinguished people that were retired. And they came up with a report. And the report's primary finding was you cannot have mail-in ballots. Because if it's a mail-in ballot, I went to the voting booth the last time, whatever it was. And I walked in Palm Beach. And I walk in, and they know me. They say, Mr. President, could I see your identification? Yes, boom, here's this, here's that, everything. and then you sit and they watch you sign, and there's not a lot you can do. I mean, if you wanted to be dishonest, it's sort of beautiful.
Right.
If instead of that, I'm going to send them a ballot.
Right.
It has to go through the postal services. It has to go through a lot of people. They mail you houses that, the house was demolished and the people have left. And it's so bad. The one thing with Jimmy Carter, he had a very strong commission. It was no mail-in ballots. And we're the only one that does elections this way anymore. They've gotten away from
and
it.
It ticked up in a big way after COVID. It used to be like soldiers serving overseas.
They use COVID to cheat.
Yeah. Well, they use COVID to certainly push this mail-in ballot. Another thing
but they use COVID to cheat.
But here's another.
And the last election was a little bit of a, you couldn't even get security guys, big, strong guys to watch. You know what? You'd call them. They'd call them in this session. They were afraid to go out. We were in the middle of COVID. Mm-hmm. We were in the middle of COVID, right smack in the middle. And they didn't want to die. They didn't want to catch it. It was like, in a way, it was like a ghost town.
Dude, if you're scared of a common cold, if you're scared of that, a common cold you got when you're 6 years old that you're happy to get so you could skip school. Remember those days? Remember those good old days? If you're scared of that, then you're a loser, dude. Just saying.
The whole thing, but mail-in ballots are a bad thing.
That certainly is a problem. Mail-in ballots are a problem.
But every
Another
other country,
problem is voter ID.
A voter ID.
Voter ID is the most bizarre argument that I've never seen anybody articulate in a way that's convincing.
Because
why
they
you
want
don't
to
need
cheat.
voter. Well, it doesn't make sense any other way. I've tried to straw man it, or I tried to steel man it rather. I've tried to look at it from a position why would you not want people to have ID? And a lot of the ideas are just ridiculous. You need an ID to get a driver's license.
Okay, but here's now the next step. Gavin Newsom, one of the worst governors in the world, and I used to get along, but I don't get along with him because he's just too, it's just a whole con job. But Gavin Newsom, the other day signed a bill that you are not allowed to ask a person, even ask them whether or not they have a voter ID.
Now, what could be a charitable reason why anybody
because they
would
want
want
to cheat?
that? But that would be the only thing that makes sense.
But that's taking it to the next level.
Right.
Now, you have ID. The Democrat National Convention, when they had it the last time I saw, they had a sign, like a billboard, and the name of the person, where they live, how they live, who the hell their boyfriends are, every single, and a big picture. That's for there. They have an ID, a big ID. It was hanging like you were a prisoner. They had these massive cards, everything. And yet when it comes to the vote, in theory, the most important thing we do, okay, when you go to a grocery store, you give ID. But for a vote, it's supposed to be a sacred thing, and it should be a sacred thing. No voter ID because they want to cheat.
Well, it doesn't make sense in any other way. I've tried to look at
There's no other way.
There's no argument that anybody's presented that makes any sense why.
You know the funny thing, Joe? The Democrats, the people, they all think you should have it. In other words, you should have it. If you go to the people, Mrs. Schwartz, Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Jones.
Sure.
They say, of course, yeah. The Democrats, they say yes. It's the politicians that don't want it, like Schumer and these guys, they don't want it because they want to be able to cheat. Because you know what? If they didn't have it, okay, who is going to vote for somebody that wants open borders? Who's going to vote for somebody that wants to have men playing in women's sports? I have never had one person come up to me and say, President, you got to do something to allow men to play in women's sports. Have you ever? Just like I've never been called by a pollster. I told you my little theory on pollsters, okay? I'm getting myself in trouble with some of these things.
They have yet. So I'm 2 hours and 38 minutes in, and there's an hour and 20 minutes left. Israel has not been brought up yet. I wonder why.
But I don't really care. Nobody's ever come up to me and said, we want to have men playing women's sports. And, I had a funny thing. At a property I own in California, I have a woman who's a very good athlete, and she works there as a manager. And Brian Urlacher, the big Chicago Bears, great player, 10-time All-Star, I guess, Hall of Famer, great guy, big, strong guy. And she said, oh, he's one of my favorite athletes. Can I have a picture? And I took a picture and I sent it. And I noticed she was the size of his leg. His leg was bigger than she was. And I put it out. Should men play in women's sports? It was just so ridiculous.
What's one of the most bizarre and polarizing ideas that's promoted by the left?
But who wants it? Now, unless you're going to cheat in elections, you're never going to get. Nobody wants it.
Right.
I don't think anybody wants it. I've been told everything. You can. Some people want this. I don't know of anybody that wants open borders. Nobody's ever come up to me and said, President, you got to let the world come into our country.
Right.
Now, if they won, so they have 21 million, I think it's much higher than that because you have gotaways. Gotaways where they just walk in, they walk in. But, and the other thing you have is human traffickers. You have traffickers, and they traffic in women, and they're going wild. Now, we used to, we have to look the trunk of cars. Can you believe it? They put women in trunks. They put 3 women in a trunk. These people are savages. They're horrible. The worst people. And they're making.
Dude.
We had a good time. I think you'll find.
Hello, world.
Hello, world.
We just wrapped up a great podcast. Hello, world.
Hello, world.
We just wrapped up a great podcast.
We had a good time. I think you'll find it very interesting and enjoy it.
Hello, world.
Oh, my God.
The kind of money they make on drugs, they're almost making on trafficking now. And the thing that's made it hot is the internet. That's what, you think of it almost as an ancient thing. but it's the internet. But who would want to have these things? Who would want to have? There's so many the transgender operations, where they're allowed to take your child when he goes to school and turn him into a male, to a female, without parental consent. Who wants this? Does anybody want this? I've never heard of anyone, and I can go into 10 different things. The only way they get them is by no voter ID. You can't have voter ID. They don't want any. They want to cheat. There's only one reason, because the voter ID is so basic. It's the most basic thing.
It's very basic.
Who would want this? They want it so they can cheat because their policies are no good. I'll tell you, they're very smart when it comes to that.
Okay.
They're very smart, although they're not smart in
nation.
Well, when they're living people, you generally tend not to want to do it. When people are still living.
Living people that formerly worked for the government.
And living people that were somehow involved in it, and you tend not to do that. But it's time to open them. I can't tell you whether or not they're going to find anything of interest. And I did partially open. I think I've opened 50%, but I was asked not to do it, and I thought that was a reasonable ask. But now I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it very soon. There's a lot of interest in it.
One of the things that
there's a lot of interest in the people coming from space.
Yes.
And I know you're interested.
Oh,
in
very
that.
interested in that. How much did they tell you about that?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah.
What did they tell you? How much can you tell?
So
how's that work? Is it like
See, one of my predictions is right. They're gonna talk about UFOs. I knew it.
Super
I think
top
I
secret?
can tell,
Tell me.
Well, based on Hunter Biden, I can say whatever the hell I
Yes.
want, right? But I interviewed a few people. It's never been my thing, I have to be honest. I have never been a believer. I have people that Area 51 or whatever it is, I think it's the #1 tourist attraction in the whole country or something. Area 51 in Las Vegas. Do you know that, right?
Sure, I know what it is.
So anyway, but it's a big tourist thing. So I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. If you saw them, you'd love to have them as
I've
your
had a couple in here. Commander David Fravor,
Yeah.
I had him in, who had that sighting in 2004. Very, very compelling with video
compelling.
evidence, radar evidence.
Ryan
Graves.
I don't believe his name, but I interviewed jet pilots that were solid people. Perfect. I mean, great pilots, great everything. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. It was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane, And it was round, which is, in theory, a great shape.
So when you were talking to these people, was this something that you were compelled to have conversations about? Was this your personal interest?
A little bit. It's not a great interest for me, but it's a little interest. I get that question as much as almost any question. Do you think that we have aliens coming, flying around or whatever?
What do you think?
There's no reason not to. I mean, there's no reason not to think that Mars and all these planets don't have life, because
Mars, we've had probes there and rovers, and I don't think there's any life there.
Well, maybe it's life that we don't know. But
maybe there was life there at one point in time. This is a speculation about Mars, that Mars had an atmosphere at one point in time, a long time ago, that could support life.
I'm so sick of hearing about Mars. It's an ugly planet, and we can't even walk around and breathe on it. So why do we care about Mars? Martians are fake. Get over it. I'm so done with the whole Mars thing. Earth is the most beautiful planet. Why do we care about the other planets? Let's be honest.
Also had large bodies of water, but we've had no evidence of even bacterial life that exists on Mars. But the universe is pretty vast.
It's not been a big thing for me. I mean, when I looked at what China did to this, they would have never done it with me, where they put the balloon up. And a lot of people thought for a little while that was one of these things. So,
that's a lot of the speculation too, that some of these drones that hover over battleships, that these are Chinese drones and that they're not UFOs.
They could be also.
There's some super sophisticated.
But I did interview, let's say 3 or 4 guys and without tremendous interest, if you had them, as I said, you'd love to have them as your children. Solid, beautiful people. They said, sir, there's something there.
There's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few
They're
of them.
They're not conspiracy guys.
Well, I mean, just the Commander David Fravor thing in 2004 off the coast of San Diego, they clocked that thing going from 50,000 feet above sea level to 50 in a second.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is.
That's tough to beat.
Yeah, they saw something in the water. It was hovering over that something that was making a disturbance in the water. They got video evidence of this thing. 2 different fighter jets with pilots in them saw it. There's visual evidence, photographic evidence, video evidence, radar evidence, whatever the hell it is. It moves in a way that would turn a human being into jello if you're inside of it. The G-force, no one would survive.
Oh,
so what is that? And it doesn't have a heat signature. They don't know what their propulsion system was. But
when you fly in some of these jets, these pilots have to be in great shape.
Oh yeah, I flew with the Blue Angels once.
Yeah,
I got to fly. I guess it's an F/A-18.
And those are older machines.
And they're crazy.
When you fly in some of these things,
oh my God,
it's amazing. Yeah, but
I can imagine.
You got to be changing. There are prophets that say the world will come to an end in the Middle East. You know that, right? And we have weapons today that are so scary. When you look, I rebuilt them all. And when you look at the weapons we have today, the biggest threat we have in the world today is nuclear weapons. And we have other weapons, too, that are devastating. But the nuclear weapons, the biggest threat we have in the world today, and that's what I was talking about de-escalation with both China and Russia. I'm telling you, we were going to de-escalate. They were going to de-escalate. You got to be careful. It's a little tricky playing with them because they say we're going to do it and they don't do it maybe. But they understood the curse too. It's a curse. It's China's way behind us, but they'll catch us within 5 years.
So let's imagine, let's say you win in November. What do you do differently, and how do you change this course that it seems we are on for World War III? How do you get us out of Ukraine? How do you stop what's going on in the Middle East? How do you put a stop to this?
Well, it's a very, to me, it's an easy question because I think I can do it easily, but it's a complex question in the sense that the times change. Every day changes. Who's winning, who's not winning? I mean, Russia's a war machine. Whether you like it or not, it just grinds along. You speak to people like Viktor Orban, and he'll tell you it's just a big, fat war machine, and that's what's happening. You look at what's happened to Ukraine. If I were there, it would have never happened.
But what could you do now? If you get into office in January, what could you do now?
Right now, you would get both of them. I know both very well. And again, I do not want to tell you, for the purpose of looking smart to fight people that, that say, oh, he was great, because if I told you exactly what I do, I could never make the deal. All I can tell you is that I would meet with Putin and I would meet with him, and I know exactly what I'd say to each one of them. And I believe that as president-elect, I would get that war stopped, and stopped fast. We have tremendous power in the United States if you know how to use the power. I stopped other wars just by the use of tariffs. I got Macron of France. Good guy, like a friend of mine, but he's a wise guy, and he's a person that likes France, and he was going to tax our companies. I sent all the smartest guys. I sent Mnuchin, and they all failed me. And I said, I'll do it myself. And I called him. I said, Emmanuel, you're taxing American companies. We're not going to allow you to do that. Oh, Donald, I cannot do it. Nothing I can do. It's already been passed. I said, Emmanuel, if you do that, I'm going to put 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes that come into the United States, and you're going to regret that you ever did it. He said, Donald, please, that's not fair. Anyway, within about 2 minutes, he dropped the whole thing. And it was massive amounts of money against American companies. I have to protect American companies.
So why doesn't the Biden administration do this?
Because they're incompetent. They don't know how to talk. Look, they met in Alaska with the Chinese, and the Chinese lectured them about how badly we treat people. Right? Okay? I mean, think of it. You remember that? It was like they didn't talk to me that way. They respected me. They respected our country. They don't respect our country. They don't respect Biden.
The Chinese don't have a soul.
They're dreaming about
souls.
her.
The Chinese don't have
because she's
souls.
incompetent. She's not a smart person. Look, she can't put two sentences together. She talks. I watched her 2 nights. I watched her last night too. It was the same thing. She's not a smart person. These guys are very smart, and they're very streetwise, and they're very tricky and evil and dangerous. And if she becomes, like I said, they'll never sell a car in here. I'll put tariffs. I don't care if they're 2,000%. They're never going to build that plant.
Is it possible to apply that same thing to the electronics that we use? One of the things that disturbs me greatly is that all of our phones are made overseas. And then some of our phones are made in places like... Yes, and the chips. And some of our phones are made in places like Foxconn, where they have nets around the building to keep people from jumping off the roof because they have so many suicides. Like, wouldn't it be better to have an American-made iPhone where people are paid good wages, they have health insurance, they're taken care of, they can live a good life, where you're not buying a piece of electronics that's cheaper because someone has to suffer in a horrible way that's not even legal in the United States. It's not even legal to have them work that way in the United States, so they get these people to build them overseas.
You do it, but let me just say, that chip deal is so bad. We put up billions of dollars for rich companies to come in and borrow the money and build chip companies here, and they're not going to give us the good companies anyway. All you had to do is charge them tariffs. If you would have put a tariff on the chips coming in, you would have been able to, just like the auto companies, no different. More sophisticated, but no different. That's not the way. You didn't have to put up 10 cents. You could have done it with a series of tariffs. In other words, you tariff it so high that they will come and build their chip companies for nothing. In other words, Joe, you put a big tariff on the chips coming in. I say, you don't have to pay the tariff. All you have to do is build your plant in the United States. We didn't have to give them the money to build a plant. Besides that, they're very rich companies, these chip companies. They stole 95% of our business. It's in Taiwan right now. They do a great job, but that's only because we have stupid politicians. We lost the chip business, and now we think we're going to pay. You can't build it that way. You have to make them spend their money in the United States, and those plants would open up all over, and they'll fund them. We don't have to put up 10 cents. And I am in the process of making a huge speech in about a little while. And you and I, how long have we been talking?
A long time.
Let's go.
Probably like 3 hours.
I got to make a speech.
Right.
But we'll do it again. I want to do it again with you.
Okay.
You are something. I said, how long will this last? Anywhere from an hour to 3 or 4 hours.
How long we do, Jamie? 3 hours.
Good. Well, we'll do it again. I thought it was great. I think it
was great. It was a lot of
You
fun.
are a fascinating guy, and you've done a great job.
Thank you very much.
Fan, and thank you very much. It's been an honor.
It's been an honor to have you on
I'm going to
as
make a great speech, and I'm going to say, and if I'm a little off tonight, I'm going to blame you. I'm going to say I spoke to this guy for 3 hours. Anyway, it's a great honor to be.
Thank you.
Now, all right, let's go back to my tweet. I said, let's see, the Joe Rogan Trump pod will be 1 hour 30 minutes. Wrong. Boring. Nothing challenging, interesting, discussed, or asked. That's true. Very safe questions. Kind of true. Joe getting Trump talk about weed UFOs. Not weed, but UFOs. Elon glazing, yes. So I was pretty much right. It was a lot better than I thought. Oh, fuck. Well, that's good timing.